Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Bottom of the Bill. We got our boy Ben Strok with us today.
Hello, hello.
What a great guy. Thanks for coming over, Ben.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Just want to, before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors this week. We got Sidecar in San Marco. They in conjunction with Harleston Green. This, I don't know if you guys can see. So put up this camera for you. Yeah,
That looks good.
it's really good Scotch,
Super
actually.
out of focus. Great job.
I'm very good with technology, obviously. Yeah, so they've donated this bottle of Scotch to us, and also Sidecar is offering a free pour of Harleston Green to anybody that mentions Side Hustle or Bottom of the Bill on their
free
next.
what?
A free pour.
Oh, like a shot.
Yeah.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, so make sure you go to Sidecar and support those guys and support Harleston Green for supporting us, you know.
Absolutely.
Also, follow us on all the social media outlets you see right there in the screen. Where is that? Where am I pointing at? Yeah, right there. There it is. On the screen.
Bottom left. Yeah. Follow us, please. We're coming back.
Coming back from what?
Have you played a show yet?
Oh, yeah.
You know what? No, I don't. Well, we've done like a couple live streams.
We've got the cheers.
Oh shit. Yeah, that's
Sorry,
right.
we have
Oh,
to cheers.
all right. Well, cheers.
Good
Cheers.
job. And didn't interrupt us at all. This is
No,
amazing.
that's fine. We're off
Yeah.
to a great start.
We're off to a great
Remember
start.
what I was telling you before we started?
Yeah. But we're starting a new band. You're not
Sorry.
involved. Anyways, but you haven't played a show yet with Ben Strok or anybody?
No. We've done like some live streams, and we've been practicing, working on the album a bunch. But like as far as a bunch of shows and kind of stuff like that, we have not braved that sea really too much yet.
Well, there's no place to go.
There's no place to really go. especially for
Well,
what
you heard about
guys
the
do.
places where people have gone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So-
For sure.
that
It's
stinks.
yeah.
Careful, beach people.
Careful, please. We love you. We want you to be happy, healthy, and probably nobody wants to get
Get sick.
get sick, and probably no one wants to be back doing it more than the musicians. So we feel your pain.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what yesterday was?
What was yesterday?
90 days since we played a show.
Oh, really?
Man.
90. So
Not for me,
today's
but-
91.
Yeah.
Since
So
I've
you
been
have
on
like the
stage.
chalk marks up on the wall every day.
Well, I just asked Siri how many days has it been since March 15th? The Ides of March.
Ooh.
Julius
all right.
Caesar. You a big
Yep.
Shakespeare guy?
Not
Me too.
It's not that I don't love Shakespeare, but
Popular
not
opinion.
my favorite. Not my favorite. Yeah, not my favorite. There we go. It's
Cool. So for those of you guys who don't know, for those of anybody out there who doesn't know, Ben has a band called Ben Strok and the Full Electric. He's a guitar player, singer, songwriter here in Jacksonville, and has been involved in many other cool projects as well. But this is the thing he's currently got going. You kind of want to tell people what you got going on?
Yeah, so Ben Strok and the Full Electric. I think if you go to the website or the other materials, I think it says something like, "Is the love child of imagination and experience." So
Deep.
that's kind of that's like the formal description, but it's a project that's been evolving over the last several years, and it continues to evolve. And I think as far as personnel wise, I think that evolution has kind of met its natural course, right? It's kind of culminated in what it is today. So I think that's what makes it especially exciting right now. Through the last probably year, it's really started to I don't know if congeal is the right word, right? But it started to kind of form up and firm up and kind of become what I was hoping that it would. So.
Awesome, man. Hell yeah.
Started coagulating.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was saying
I
congeal.
don't
I'm
think
like,
that's the right word either.
I'm like, I don't feel like that is right. So I had to put the disclaimer
that's like
on
when
it.
all your food in your stomach coagulates into one thing.
So maybe it's happening in this stomach of the music world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
yeah.
The belly of the beast.
And
thing?
you know
the belly
what?
of the See, thank you for saying
And
it. There you
your
go.
music is very easily digestible.
Hey, you know what? All right.
I'm a wordsmith. Bad at lyrics, though.
We just need to keep you around. You may replace Janice. We're gonna have to probably
Okay,
fire
yeah,
her.
it's
and
all right.
we'll
And
bring
I'm
you
really
in.
sorry. We crossed wires. Janice just been playing phone tag all week and
Yeah.
everything, and so we're really sorry that we didn't get your PR in connection with our PR. And I got a couple things to say to Cheryl.
Well, I
I'll tell you that
appreciate you
much.
picking up the slack,
Yeah.
and thank you for covering me here, Janice. You're in some hot water
Yeah.
if you're watching this, which you're probably not because of the spectacular job that you've done so far. So
Yeah, I'm not trying to throw Cheryl under the bus either, but get in the game is what I'm trying to say, and maybe you should talk to her?
Yeah, I gotta get on that.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
I'll get on that.
And it's not just affecting Side Hustle now; it's affecting other artists that Side Hustle's working with, and so I feel like
I know.
kind of strengthens the case.
I know.
Absolutely.
It's not just a you thing at this point, right? It's
It's always about me, bro. This is my world. You guys just fucking live in it.
There
We
you go.
deal with
We
it.
are professionals. It's just Cheryl. Just she doesn't.
room to grow. Room to grow.
There's room to grow. Yeah.
to
Bless her heart. They say in the
Yeah.
South.
Yep. Room to grow.
Chris Poland, what's up, man? Thanks for tuning in. So we do encourage anybody to ask questions if they have any questions throughout this thing, in case you feel like we're not getting to something that you want to hear about. So feel free to, put some in there, chime in. There you go. So I kind of want to explain to people how you and I met. It's kind of an interesting story how it happened, because when we first moved here about 5 years ago now, Jesus Christ, we had come up it was February of 2015. We came up here to visit my uncle and to just kind of check out the Jacksonville scene. And so the first night, I think we went downtown and saw some stuff. It was kind of cool. And then we went to the beaches one night, and we walked into Flying Iguana, and I saw Herta Watts playing.
Flying Iguana, yeah.
And I
yeah, man.
and I heard you guys were doing like some cool tunes, like some funky shit, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Like I can dig this. If this is like one of the bands in the scene here, I'm into it.
What year are we talking about? Sorry,
2015.
2015. Sorry.
Yeah. And so, anyways, we ended up leaving Jax that weekend with an uncertainty about what we were gonna do, and then we decided to just kind of pull the trigger and go for it. And then so the week before we officially moved up here, we moved up a bunch of our stuff, and Chelsea had gotten a job with this nonprofit organization. I can't remember what they were called right now, but anyways, they wanted to pass out flyers at Jazz Fest for some kind of TV thing that they were doing. So we were there passing stuff out, and I was like, "Yo, this is the band that we saw at Flying Iguana. You guys were playing at Hemming Park,
man.
Hemming Plaza, yeah." And I was like, "Damn, they're doing some like Herbie tunes and like some cool shit." And I was like, "All right, fuck yeah, this is badass." And then I remember going up to you and speaking to you that day about like after your set. I was like, "Yo, man, I'm moving up here. Like, what's the scene like? We're trying to get plugged in, this and that." And yeah, man, it was just like a very. And then, when I moved up here, I hit you up about like the jam sessions, and you gave me all this like insight to where to go in the scene and who to get plugged in with, and it was very cool. So I have to thank you for helping me get plugged in right away.
Well, cheers, man.
Yeah, man.
I remember that day very well. I remember that Hemming Plaza show, and I remember you and Chelsea coming up after, and you're like, "Hey, I'm moving up here. We're like here moving our stuff." I remember that actually very, very well.
Yeah.
And here we are today.
It's crazy, man. It's just so weird how shit works out, man. It really is.
Yep, super cool, and funny like you said, because I remember that day very, very well. I don't know, I'm sure it was a fun show and all that kind of stuff, but I remember specifically you coming up, so you must have made an impression.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to hear that. It's cool.
It was like his lifeless eyes and like long arms. And you were just like, yeah, like this.
I was recognizing the otherworldliness.
Yeah.
I know there's something about the lizard thing.
Reptilian.
I recognized it.
Reptilian.
Well, fair.
Well,
Yeah,
you're close.
Our reptilian community.
Yeah.
Would be respectful.
Yeah, except they want to like drink our blood, but yeah, they're respectful.
Dude, just different perspective.
Yeah.
I thought we weren't doing perspectives today.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We weren't
That's
doing
right. Yeah, I got it in my head. Sorry.
I'm not doing perspectives.
We're not doing any, or aspects.
Yeah, or no aspects either. We're not doing aspects.
We gave him a rundown of like what we were gonna talk about. He's like, "No, I'm out." And you're wearing your sunglasses too, like trying to like fucking not highballs. What do I say all the time?
Big time.
You're trying like big time.
Big
It's like
big time.
I'm not fucking talking about perspectives. I'm not talking about anything.
Oh, aspect.
Nope.
I'm out.
Aspects, nope. Gotta go.
No, sorry. I don't run that game.
So I did kind of want to ask you about like how you got started playing music and what it was like kind of coming up in the Jack scene.
Yeah. So started playing music. Well, I started singing. That's kind of what I started doing, right? So as a kid, I was really into singing. I had a very abbreviated stint with the violin. At probably like 5, and that love relationship did not last.
It's hard.
I
played viola in 3rd grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. Like, I thought it was really cool because I was obsessed as a very little kid with like Charlie Daniels. My dad had like Charlie Daniels band records.
Great.
And I would like
great band.
dance so hard. Devil Went Down to Georgia. I would like scratch his record. He'd be like, "Dude, we have to." I like have to turn it off. So then I think that's probably why I ended up trying to play it. and I got into it. It was probably more dedication than the 5-year-old me like had attention span wise.
Yeah.
So like the love affair did not last. Then I had 2 older brothers, right, and they had some kind of music lessons. So I ended up trying piano, maybe couldn't have been a year.
It's not a lot of fun.
I learned how to play like I think like 1 or 2 songs, and then I had this recital, right? It was like my first like recital ever on anything. And I remember I was trying to play Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
That's usually that's what I teach 8-year-olds.
Okay. Yeah. So that was probably the timing, right?
That's how you teach an octave. Somewhere. Yeah.
Well, so I got to the very end of that. So you're very familiar. So I got to the very end, and I could not find the last like resolution note. And I was like, why can't I? I was looking for like the I or something, and I couldn't find the damn note. And I kept like guessing in the recital, and the teacher was finally like,
it's this one.
and I was like, you know what? Maybe piano isn't for me. And so I ended up stopping piano lessons. Looking back, I like still think about that moment, and it like pushes me to, I think, continue to go for things. Because I figured if that didn't completely derail me off music, I was like a little kid. I was like, I can't find the note,
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like a cool moment that challenged me. But then I was always into singing. So I was singing, always working on that kind of stuff. And then I got into guitar. I was probably like 16 or 17. So this is, now a while later. And my oldest brother came home from college, and he had like an acoustic guitar. And he knew all the chords. He knew like G and C.
Oh, nice.
But,
those are good ones.
Yeah, having never played guitar and being like 16, I was like, this is really cool. I just thought it was like, amazing. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, can I try it? He's like, no. You can't touch it. And so that made me obviously want to like check it out more.
Right.
But anyway, he left after like whatever the end of the summer was. I hadn't really played on it. And then when we left, we took him to the airport, and I was like, man, are you sure I can't like play this thing? He's like, no. But anyway, somehow between us packing him up and leaving, he had snuck the guitar back in and left it at the house.
Oh, wow.
So when I got home, it was like on the bed.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And I was like, holy crap. So that lit all
Well, like he pulled a Santa Claus. He did it on purpose.
Yeah, he pulled the Santa
what a
Claus.
nice guy.
Yeah, and he left it, and that was like the fateful like twist, because I had always been like really drawn to music, and it impacted me a lot. But I hadn't really got into the instrumentation side of it, other than those 2 fantastic flops with the violin and the piano.
Right.
And so I was a little late to the game, right? Probably 16, maybe 17.
I feel you, yeah.
And then my love affair with acoustic music started. And I did that for a while. I wasn't even really into like electric guitar or anything at all. I was really into, like softer kind of music. Like I love James Taylor, still do.
Oh,
right?
James Taylor,
That was
man.
kind of my bag. Like I was like fingerstyle stuff and like that songwriting aspect of it, and like CSNY, all that kind of stuff, and CSN specifically, I guess, before it was too electrified, right? I loved it. That was my thing. So I played a lot of that kind of stuff. I like recorded a couple like very early like homemade, like
Oh, yeah.
recordings.
Been there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff. But those were like the big catalysts. The other one was like in high school. I had this awesome teacher. I'm gonna keep all the details of this ambiguous, because it's but we had this like AV class where you'd like learn how to like do movies and like do audio recording.
Sure.
And we got to the end of the class, and I had made one of these recordings, and we're supposed to bring all the equipment home at the end of the year,
Yeah.
and I gave him a copy of the recording, like the little record or whatever. And I was like, I'm really in love with this process. I love doing this and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, the school system is like refreshing all their AV equipment next year. He's like, if for some reason the soundboard and I think I had like 2 microphones, and it was not fancy stuff, right? He's like, if it didn't, come back in the box, I'm sure, the world wouldn't end. He's like, it's
Wow.
supposed to come back, but so anyway, so what
Another
happened
Santa
was,
Claus story.
so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like all these weird things happened where I gave him the thing and he listened to it. And it was probably garbage, but he's probably like, hey, at least this kid is trying.
Yeah, right.
And so he's like, hey, if the stuff doesn't show back up, and so I was like, oh my God. So he's like, I can't tell you that you don't have to bring it back.
Wow.
But I think needless to say, it didn't end up coming back. And we used that soundboard for years and those microphones.
That's
and
awesome.
And so that kind of like built up. That was like another cool gift and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so some bizarro Santa Claus moments.
Where'd you grow up at?
So Michigan. So I grew up in Michigan.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I didn't come down here until 2001, I think.
What part of Michigan?
So a place called Howell. So it's like halfway between Lansing, the capital, and
Yeah.
Ann Arbor.
Okay, so you're a big Wolverines fan?
My brother went to University of Michigan, so I guess
Ooh.
by default, sort
That'd be
of.
fun.
Yeah.
Do you know about Ann Arbor?
I don't know anything about it.
That's okay. It's just
Sports.
big stadium in like
It's just
whole
a big,
country.
big stadium. Shout out to my brother. He
Yeah.
played in the University of Michigan marching band.
Oh, dude!
So
I was telling about that on the ride home, like getting into one of those the music schools, and that's actually where Volpec is, where they went to school.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know
Okay.
that? Yeah,
No,
they,
I did
they
not
met
know
at
that.
University of Michigan. It's like a really, really good
You were
music.
telling me about
program.
that, yeah.
But getting into one of those big colleges to be in one of those marching bands is a huge deal. But Michigan's a huge one. Ohio State's another big one.
Yeah, he tore it up, and I think, like, in the first couple big bands that, like we did with each other when him and I started actually working together, I think seeing the lessons and things that like taught him,
Right.
definitely inspired me in some ways, like the dedication piece of it. Because like you're saying, it's a hard thing to do. You're performing every week in front of, like, I don't know how big the stadium is.
100,000 people.
I wanted to say 80 to like 100.
That's
so every
Super Bowl
week
level
you're doing
stuff, every week.
every week you're doing that, and I think like he got to meet some great composers
I'm sure. Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. So I think like he got to like hang out with John Williams because they played the Rose Bowl, and like he got to go.
He's
Wow.
And it was like
he wrote
like a ton.
Star Wars. All Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
Yeah, like what E.T. I think as well, right?
Yeah, anything with Spielberg he did.
Yeah,
too,
yeah. So pretty cool
That's
stuff.
cool. We got to meet him.
Yeah,
That's
I was like,
awesome.
man, that's somebody I would have loved to meet. But he inspired me in that way. My brother, he never did quit the piano kind of thing. So I saw his
Yeah.
dedication and was like, man, that's pretty awesome. I just didn't get that instrument bug till way later.
It wasn't for
I
you. It was for your
understand.
brother.
yeah.
It's funny. My little sister plays guitar and sings.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, we're basically like the Carpenters.
There you go. That's right.
At any point in time, we could start the band, but she's a not secret agent, special agent for the Department of
Secret
Defense.
agent, yeah.
Right.
But I can't really spread that information out. But anyway,
Well,
sorry to interrupt, but I was just wondering where it was that you grew up and you were doing all this stuff and everything. If it was down in Florida, I'm like, where'd you go to school? Where did they give away the mixing boards?
Yeah.
That's why I
Right.
wanted to know.
well, and it was so funny because it was just like a little like couple. I think it was like a 4 or 8 channel board, and like I said, it was nothing terribly fancy, but
Yeah.
it gave me the means to like sit at home, over those next few years and like understand like, hey, how does music production kind of work at a very basic like homemade level,
Like what-
and let
and
me
what-
trial and error stuff.
Yeah, what does this do? How does this work? Kind of shit,
Yeah.
It's amazing when you're a kid too, like when you finally get like your hands on something like that, because like you don't have any money.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to use this to its 120% potential. Like I remember, I had the same scenario. I had a cracked version of Fruity Loops.
Yeah.
When I was
Okay.
like 13 or 14, and I'm like, I was just like an expert at it.
Yep.
At 13, because like that's all I had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I totally understand it. We need to give kids more music instruments. That would be a good thing to start.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure, yeah.
absolutely. And it gives you like that, like exactly what you're saying. You're going to use it to its like maximum potential because one, you probably maybe, but in all likelihood, you don't have the means to go out and just get different things, and then the amount of creativity that you have to use to max
Yeah.
those things out, I think is really good
Absolutely.
for like teaching you long-term process.
100%.
There was something in that like galvanized it in me of like, hey, and the biggest mystery of all, because if you're passively listening to music or like you're really passionate about listening to music, like maybe you don't understand how those things are put together. So and I didn't, right? So for me, the cool mystery was like, whoa, like I'll record like this finger style acoustic guitar thing, and then I'll sing, and then I'll put some harmonies on it, and then maybe I'll put like some kind of little thing behind it to complement, like, and then all of a sudden to me it's like, oh, this is kind of like, this is how songs are made.
Right.
And like, I don't know, it still lights me up now just thinking about it, because that was like a little mini mirror. Like, I guess I didn't really think about it that way, but all these little Santa Claus moments that you're saying are pretty cool. Like I had one with my dad that was like,
Give kids all your stuff is what we're trying to say.
Just
They're
give it-
better
give
than
it to
us. They're gonna take over the world. Just stop hoarding it.
let the kids have a chance.
Let the kids play some music. If you see a kid like that was weird. Not weird or whatever, but like what he left. Would you say it was your uncle or something that left the guitar?
My brother, yep.
The brother left it because he's like, no, you can't play it. No, you can't play it. And then he lets it because he
Yeah.
felt that.
Yeah.
Just let him play it.
It's so cool, man.
Let the kids play.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, let the kids play.
Yeah,
I did
he
kind.
hates
I
kids,
did.
he
I do not hate kids.
Part of the reptilian philosophy.
Well, he wants to eat them.
Yeah.
Right.
No, they taste
So I
great.
actually really
Yeah.
like them
Yeah,
a lot.
if they're
then,
playing,
right?
if they're playing, we can't drink their blood.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Doesn't work the
exactly.
same, yeah.
Because then no, they're worth something.
Right.
Yep.
He eats like just
I see now. Yeah.
talentless children. Is what he does.
They're all talentless children.
I did kind of want to touch a little bit on the production side of it because it is. I think you have a very similar way of looking at it that I do, and him and I were talking about this the other day about like he's very much in the performance aspect of playing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like performing, obviously, but if I never play a show again, but I get to work in the studio for the rest of my life, I would do that because like what you're saying is like the idea of laying something down and all of a sudden, so I can try doing this, I can try doing that, and then you start, and the more you do that, you actually start to hear things without actually having to play anything, and then you can put that into practice, or you can put that into what you're doing, and it's I don't know, man. There's a magic that you can do with that. It's like there's no limits to creativity with your mind in that scenario.
Yeah, it definitely is exercising a different muscle.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the more muscles that you learn to exercise around like music, and it's not a thing, right? It's this multiplicity of things.
Right.
Like, so I definitely hear you there. I mean, I'm definitely most in love with the performing of the music piece, but I do agree that there is another side to it and I think actually you said it really awesome, is going through the production side of things. It does something for your writing, and it does something for like the time where you're not able to have your hands on an instrument. Like there may be times in the day or times at night, and I think it like helps you do that construction in your head.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it gives you a little bit of extra juice when you do get your hands on the instrument, because
Right.
you're able to process thoughts around like the whole idea in a different way.
Right.
It's not better or worse, but it's definitely another a different muscle. And even on top of that, I think there's some other cool benefits. Like to me, I think in the album that we're working on now, I'm hoping people hear it, is there are some like choices in there that are more reserved, right? Like we'll have a lot of songs that are very they open themselves up to a lot of improv, right? And on the record, we're like, hey, instead of everyone being 10, 11, 12 minutes, right? It also teaches you to go back in and be a little bit to make sure you're shaping those songs that they get to a place where they deliver the full message that maybe the 12-minute version would give someone, but to do it in a way that you can get it into 4, 5, 6, and not cutting it for the sake of cutting it, but just making the potency level higher.
Yeah.
Like distilling it for the record. I guess.
Exactly. And then
Concentrating it down to like just amazing 5-minute jam.
Yeah, like boiling it down, man.
just
like, you
boiling
know,
it down.
And that's another cool like
That's hard.
honesty with yourself through the production process
Yes.
that I think that hits on kind of where you're going to.
I hate that.
Well, there's
It's brutal, man.
He already knows it already.
It's brutal, but
Yeah,
I
but
think
I'm
it's
the
a cool
worst.
muscle to work on, right?
Well, it's
Yeah,
definitely very
I flexed.
revealing. It's definitely very, very revealing where you're at as a musician in a lot of ways. But then there's also, like, kind of what you're saying with the condensing songs down to like 4 or 5 minutes, whereas live you'd play them, it could be like a 10 or 15-minute jam or something. There's something about working within that limitation, like you're saying, to really distill this perfect product. And then also, like, I don't know, to me, when you're recording something, it exists forever. Like whether people hear it or not, it exists in the world forever. When you're playing live, it's a moment, it's a fleeting moment, which I love playing live and everything. But like, to me, there's something about creating like a permanent part of existence that's like, has to be like perfection, you know? And so I think that for me in a studio, I like less of the improv stuff, and I like to really have everything down to like, I don't care how many times it takes to do it. Just it should be perfect, you know.
He really doesn't care how many times it takes.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
Relentless.
yeah.
There's something really cool to be said for that, right? We wouldn't have probably Steely Dan records, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We wouldn't have Pink Floyd records either.
Or like Rush and like all the prog rock bands and all that.
So I mean, there's something in the entire pop catalog. Love it or leave it, whatever. But you know, that's in the same absolute vein of thinking, and that's why I think like studio work has different levels of it jives on different levels with different bands, right? Like, there's no mystery, right? The Grateful Dead, studio records, and although they put out amazing ones, right, that was a harder process for them to do than maybe some other bands that went in with that intent. So I think there's definitely folks that are more in that camp. There's certainly folks that are less in that camp, but I think you're right about making something that is kind of permanent in that way. It's not as much of like a live tape or someone just coming to a show. You're saying, hey, this is what we are, which is also, I was chatting with you the other day, that's also the really tough part, because as an artist, right, all the dang records are like almost always a retrospective, right?
Yeah.
So that by the time you're done, it's who you were. It's who you were in a sense,
You're almost sick of it.
Yeah, and to me, like, that's the part that
time to go on tour.
Yeah, like that's the part that like kills me, because doing it, I'm like, this is I'm having fun doing it.
Yeah.
Pouring your heart and soul to it, and then by the time you get to the end of it, I'm always trying to practice and learn and all these other things, and like I'm like, well, gosh, this is who I was, when we started this.
Right.
Yeah, we're having the same fucking problem. Not problem, but like the same issue with it. Where we're just like, damn, we've been playing these songs for so long and everything like that. And we're finally recording it, and it's like, okay, so it's done. They're like, no, it's not done. It's definitely not done.
Gotta keep playing these
Gotta
songs.
keep playing these songs
Yeah,
so you can sell your album.
Yeah, that's the trick. I mean, that's the tricky part, right? And I know anyone who's doing recording or in music, or probably artists too, right? By the time you finish if it's like a painting or something, it's kind of who you were at that period, which in one sense is really beautiful. That's weird. I wonder how painters feel about that. Painters, if you're there, let me know. I've wondered about that.
I feel like movie directors and actors, you always see like interviews on actors like, oh, I didn't watch that movie. And I'm like, why not? Are you like that big of an asshole? And then I'm like, oh, because you were doing it for 9 months and you had like the whole thing memorized. Why would you want to watch that again?
Right? Yeah.
I get it. But
I've listened to our first EP maybe 2 or 3 times, and it's usually just me showing it to other people. And like the rest of it, it's like I would like, are you kidding me? Putting it on just to listen to it. There is that aspect of it that is a little I guess monotonous what from the studio side of it. But for me, just the process of being in the studio and creating, and just like the boundlessness of it, like there's nothing you can't do.
There was a funny bit from Aziz Ansari where he went to Kanye West's house. And he was like, he got to his party, and Kanye West was just playing his music at his party. And that's what I'm trying to say. That's that kind of like cringy, like, oh, we're gonna put our music on, like, ugh, okay.
It's a little pretentious.
Sick.
I
don't know if I could.
Ben, I did want to.
I would do that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, I was just finishing off my sentence.
Oh, okay. I did want to ask you a little bit about.
You're killing me.
About Herta Watts and just like what that process was of starting that band, and that was like your first real gigging band.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, yes and no, right? The very first gigging band that I was in college was this band called Asilo.
Oh yeah, Sean's telling me about them.
Man,
like CeeLo Green.
Asilo. It means like haven.
And what?
In Spanish, right?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
But that was like the first gigging band we were in, right? And that band was freaking so much fun. That was some of the most fun days.
Yeah.
But then when we finished school, right, several of us were going in different places, all that kind of thing. So Sean and I ended up in St. Augustine and continued to play, and so we kind of Herta Watts became a thing, right? And that started to live. And that band, the cool part is we had quite a journey all together. And we got to do some amazing things, and I think we all learned a ton about how to be in a band, right? And all the things that it takes to be in a band. And luckily, I think at this point, we're still all incredible friends. That's why it's so kind of strange to me still. Like, we're not playing, haven't played for a long time. I still feel like it's not like it's like weird. Like, it wasn't like, all right, we're breaking up. It was just we were doing different things at the time. And I think had some other interests that we were pursuing, and there were like a lot of big life changes for people happening. So I think that was really the main oomph behind how that I don't want to even say broke up, but how that thing got put on a shelf somewhere, right? I would never rule out, Herta Watts show popping up from time and again.
Sure, yeah.
But and because we're all friends, right, and we learned so much from each other, that band was an incredible point in like my personal life, development as a musician, all like the lessons learned playing with some superheroes of mine. Getting to go to Swanee, like
Yeah.
all those things that built like, hey, this is really what I want to do with myself,
Yeah.
or kind of actualized through the lens of Heard of Watts, and I got to understand what that is and feels like and could be, right? Because there was obviously still room to grow. But even after that period as well, I think I learned maybe even more about myself, right? And that was like the crazy part, and probably about each person that I played with there in that group as well. Because you get to a point where, like, all right, you guys have all been in certain bands. I know you've been in some really fantastic bands as well.
What a nice guy.
But
Yeah, he's
you
a
go
real
through,
nice guy.
Yeah, exactly. He don't like him too much, but
well, but you go through these things, right? And you play, and you get to play some great places, or play with, or open for some heroes, and all these kind of things. And then at a certain point, like, your identity is wrapped into that project to a certain extent, right? You're so invested, and this is kind of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then if that thing is gone,
yeah.
then all of a sudden, like, at least for me, I don't speak for anybody else, but like for me, like, I was faced with like, hey, is this really who I am? Is this really what I want to do? Like, how do I go forward as a musician on another path? What does that look like? It takes courage, I think, for like everyone in the bands, and that's not just me. I was crazy. That's not what I mean. I mean, it takes like an inner resolve to be like, hey, this one thing that was a big part of who I am is not what I'm doing right now.
It's just gone, yeah.
And I'm gonna continue to be a musician. Like, and to me, like, digging in deep, that's like, I had never taken lessons. That's when I like decided, hey, I'm gonna go try to learn some things and like face a lot of the gaps that I felt like I personally had to.
Yeah.
Because I was always practicing, trying to learn new things, but I wasn't like consciously on the path to really, really grow. And I like push myself. I'm like, hey, if this is what I really feel, I love it, I'm gonna push myself. And that was a good period of time, and then kind of led to me doing this project. So I think, like, when you talk about the full electric and kind of Heard of Watts, it's like the whole evolution through things.
Right.
How much time do you think was in between it?
I think there was probably, that's like the funny thing about the full electric, the whole idea. And I didn't even like necessarily want to put my like name on a band.
Yeah.
But I did that because at the time I didn't know like where things were going. They kind of like, I knew I had to keep doing something.
Sure.
And I had a rotating group of folks a lot. Like, I was kind of in the mind of like Everyone Orchestra kind of thing. And so I was like, well, if it has my name on it, at least something consistent, so people know like, hey, what kind of vibe might it have, or like what kind of music might be played.
Yeah, it's a smart call, I think.
Because I was trying to find a way to keep it grounded, as I was trying to figure out like what playing with a bunch of different people was like. Because we were doing like 150, 60, 70 dates a year,
right,
with the same, couple guys. And so I hadn't been playing with a lot of other people, and that was part of the challenge as well. It's like, hey, play with other people, get in these situations, grow as a person, grow as a musician.
It's an insane amount of discipline to be able to put yourself in those scenarios,
Well, and be like, hey, I don't know. I was trying to push myself because I knew, like, in my own self, like, there were gaps I wanted to tackle.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that was part of, I think, that whole, like, process.
Well,
so there wasn't a lot of time, I think, in between it. It was something I was like, all right, let's face the music of this thing.
Right. Well, it's interesting about like what you were saying about doing like 150, 160 shows a year. It's like, it's not that you don't practice. You're saying that you kind of like weren't practicing the way you should have been. It's not that you don't practice or anything. It's just that, like you're saying, you're not practicing the way you should because you have 3 or 4 shows that week, and you're just like, okay, well, I'm gonna play later this week, and I'll just you get caught. You don't want to pick up your instrument. You just don't want to do it on a night off or on a day off or something.
It was like that, or like even a lot of the practicing we were doing were for like really cool show opportunities.
Right. So you're putting together a set list or something.
Yeah. So it becomes like a little bit different from a practice routine kind of thing.
Right.
Like, you're practicing when I'm trying to learn and like work with new ideas. That's a very different kind of practice than like, hey, we're gonna open for like Snarky Puppy.
100%.
And it was a different mindset, which was also awesome.
Yeah.
So but for me, like, there were ideas that like I wanted to learn. Like, I want to learn more about like messing with modal playing, and I wanted to learn more about like, hey, how can I infuse these things that I'm hearing from artists that I really like into ideas that I have or songs that I'm writing. And I wasn't taking the time to do that the way I should have.
Of course.
And so as an artist, like, the artist part of me was fighting the band part of me,
right,
in a way. And I had to find that balance. Now I feel like I understand how to see that balance and recognize it. But at the time, like I said, I had plenty of gaps in my own like personal way I wanted to grow.
Yeah.
That I wasn't addressing those gaps.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a thing with a lot of musicians that are in working bands like that. It's everybody wants to be better and be getting better, but then you have like this other thing that you're doing, and sometimes it takes priority over your personal stuff because you're working for like the greater cause of this band, and it's like I don't know.
You just have to do it, otherwise you can't pay rent.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Wrong. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it either. I mean, like that's why life is. Everybody's path is different, first of all, and that's what's great about it. And also, like, it's lifelong learning, right? As a musician, if you're dedicated to it, you decide to get on this train. It's a ray, right? It's not a line. There's not two endpoints. It's a ray. There's a start, and then
it just keeps going.
That's it. And like learning how to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I guess is what this is all about. Maybe, I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah, you're our Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, it's a ray.
It's a ray. Yeah. Whole life.
It's not a line segment. I did though. I thought about it like kind of a line segment. And
that's true.
It's not. It's a ray, man. And
yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like you're never really going to be satisfied with where you're at 100%. Like there's always going to be somebody that you hear that's going to be better or that you think is better or doing something that you don't know how to do that you like that you don't think you're able to figure out how to do or whatever it might be. There's always going to be that. But yeah, it's a crazy thing to try and pursue because it's a pursuit of an endless of a life that's just being unhappy all the time because like you're just never satisfied where you're at.
That's not the way I look at it.
I'm just trying. It's not obviously the way I look at it, but
it sounds like you're just like there's always gonna be somebody better than you and et cetera.
Well,
so
no,
that should give you the reason to do it.
It's more of just not being happy with yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you don't have not contempt, what's the word I'm looking for? The opposite of that. Content. Sorry.
Yeah, content.
Yeah,
If you're not content with just who you are and being okay with like, hey, well, why did I sign up for this? You do it for yourself.
Yeah.
No,
then you're never gonna be happy.
That was a big part of my. That was a big part of my growth.
I know.
When I started doing the lessons, right? I went to take lessons from a guy who's amazing guitar player, right? Tony Smotherman.
Let's say you want to give him a shout out.
Yeah,
Dude's badass.
I was gonna say, let me give you a shout out, man. One of the most amazing guitar players I have ever heard, and then I was lucky enough to, pick his brain all the time, and the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Not like one of the nice, I mean the nicest guy. And one of the things that I don't know what he would say about it, but one of the things I felt like I got as a takeaway outside of all the great lessons kind of things was exactly what you're talking about. I would talk to him about, we had like several times like throughout the period I was learning and studying under him where I'd say, hey, I was expressing the kind of things you were talking about, and those were struggles that I had. And I'm like, well, and he kind of put a different way of thinking about it. It was, hey, look, you are who you are and you are where you are right now in that moment. It's like if you go on stage or you're at a rehearsal or you're doing whatever, even you're practicing, like you are where you are. And if you want to grow, you have to be okay with that first, and then you have to build on that. But if you can't reconcile the two, like, hey, this is where I'm at and this is where I want to be, it's going to be really hard to have like meaningful growth and to kind of break that cycle. Because I had that, totally, man. And I've gotten, it's never really, I think, doesn't really go away, right? That's part of it's like that one little devil on your shoulder that keeps,
always,
But that's being able to control that, I think, as much as you can, and pushing yourself to realize that, hey, where I'm at is where I'm at, and that's okay. Yeah. And I can grow from here.
Yes.
And like believing that, like kind of how you were talking about it. I mean, that's like a big shift that I had to make. And to be honest, it shifted like everything about the way I approach music, practice, performance, even like interaction in a band. Like it changed so much for me and how I think about things.
Another part of that too.
So thank you, Tony.
Is accepting the plateau that you're on. And so like if you're like, I need to get to this next level. I need to get to this next level. You're never gonna grow. You have to be okay with being this is where I am. And the people who fail on that, they get tired of that and they think that it's never gonna change, so they give up. Or then they just get too ambitious and they're like, I have to change, and then they don't take enough time. Just dig in and stick to where you're at and absorb the plateau, and then you will become better. That's part of any sort of skill. Anyways, this podcast is basically for children.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Just a message for children. Just don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up, and then don't get frustrated.
You're gonna get through those multiplication tables. I promise you.
You will get through it.
The 12s are hard, but you're gonna do it.
12s are
I believe in
hard.
you.
12s
And I
don't
believe
make
in
any
you.
sense,
I believe in you.
So you did mention something about like interacting with a band, like, and how you've done, how you've grown in that way from being in a Herd of Watts to where you're at right now. So maybe talk a little bit about your experience now running the full electric versus when you were kind of more like a more democratic scenario in Herd of Watts. I guess is probably the right way to put it.
Yeah, I think Herd of Watts. The thing about it is like, I really resisted a lot of that as much as I think anybody naturally might, right? So there were definitely louder voices in that room sometimes, but it was a very, I feel like at least it was pretty democratic thing overall, even to the point where like there were some big gaffes I think we made for as many cool things as we were able to do, like things that like we didn't pursue because of a democratic like consensus on it or whatever. Like there was one that will stick with me forever. There were a couple of us, like when when Naughty Professor, right? One of my like favorite Naughty Professor.
Fucking
if you're out
awesome.
there,
Love
holy
those guys.
crap!
Yeah, we saw them in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're
Like,
like the.
They're amazing.
They're really good.
Everyone in that band, I love.
It was them opening up for Marcus.
No,
King.
it was them being the backup band for Marcus.
Oh, it
King.
was.
Yeah.
So it was them at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Your
ridiculous.
whole discography is like
I
way.
was drunk. It was New Orleans. I mean, what do you want to do?
No, their discography is way beyond like. I mean, and it's already I think well praised, but it's way beyond even. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Those guys are sick. When they were first coming up though, they were doing like the circuit,
Right.
And they came through 1904, and we had a show with them, and it was a great show. And then we were talking to them, and like maybe a couple months later, it was like, hey, we're gonna do this show in New Orleans. It's gonna be like a good venue. I don't remember exactly now where. I think it was
Tipitina's. Ooh.
I'm pretty
It's a great
I'm
spot.
Pretty sure
shit.
it was burned in my brain. And we were like, hey, can we come out there and maybe do a show together? They're like, yeah, let's do a show. And we were so like excited about that.
Yeah.
That would have been like for sure the biggest show we'd ever done. And like we're like these crazy awesome jazz players are even gonna let us on a bill with them? Or
Yeah.
Someone is in New Orleans drinking, making calls. But it was awesome, and we were gonna be able to do it. And we ended up not doing that because there was one person in the band who could not do that date, and so we were kind of like very
That makes me want to
democratic and didn't do
punch somebody for you.
it. Well,
How do you not? Okay.
well,
like,
it was
whatever.
well, I'm saying though,
Were
it
they
was
getting married?
No,
No excuse.
no, yeah. So it was a democratic kind of thing though. That's what we had. I mean, it was
man,
it
how
was
do you
kind
turn
of,
down Tipitina's though? Jesus Christ.
and so we ended up just not doing it for that, right? And that was one thing like that I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I had done that gig.
Wait, was it Sean?
Just no, it was
No.
not Sean. I think he probably feels the same way. I think he probably feels the same way.
That was a joke,
I did about
Sean. Sorry, he's in our band now,
Yep,
so
yep.
that was a joke.
Well, and it's funny because the guy that precipitated, I think that decision ended up not being with the band.
Right.
In the not distant future from that. And so I always kind of looked at it. I'm like, man, not that it would have necessarily been like the pivotal shift in the world or whatever, but it would have been a great opportunity to have done something that I really wanted to do, and I think would have been good to do, for everybody involved.
Sure.
That we didn't because of
Absolutely.
a democratic thing. So that's like one thing that is stuck is that, hey, consensus of the band is super important.
Sure.
And everyone has to have buy-in, and everybody has to have a serious stake.
Agreed.
But sometimes, got to make calls.
Yeah.
And
100%.
we didn't do that. We were always we didn't do that always. Let me put it that way. There were times like, Sean was very good at being a good voice of reason, or my brother Matthew was also a very good like voice of reason on different things, and I'm sure there were times where I was, and Jamal was as well. But I don't think we had it like oiled.
Right.
I don't think we had that thing dialed in, and one of the things that I've tried to do like with the full electric differently, even like in the way that the folks came to the band and all that kind of stuff, my initial knee-jerk reaction with that project was to be like more not dictatorial, but much more like, hey, this is what we need to do kind of thing.
Right.
And as the band actually formed, though, it just kind of happened strangely, is I kind of, at the same time I was getting the lessons and I was learning about that, hey, accept kind of where you're at's where you're at.
Yep.
Learn that maybe even if that's not where you want to be okay with that in order
Be
to
comfortable
grow.
with it, yes.
I took the same approach to like thinking about band visioning. And then all of a sudden, like, we got the opportunity to do Swanee Rising, and we started opening up for a couple really great folks again. and then all the band like cast of characters like settled in, and then that continued to evolve. So I've kind of
full electric, right?
yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I've
makes
kind of
sense.
taken this like hold on loosely sort of thing with it, and it's not that because I didn't have expectations, it exceeded expectations. It's more like because I respected whatever is going on in the universe, and I said, hey, you know, I'm definitely shooting for something, but I'm not forcing things. It's like I removed this friction in the tectonic plates of
So you're
like,
a Taoist then.
I guess
You stream
you
down
know.
the river.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
That's it's definitely something to be said about not fighting. You know, like just like
Being on the plateau is the fight.
yeah,
Just don't give in to frustration and don't give in to giving up.
right.
I don't think you know so much about the plateau that you can dismiss it, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh. Like,
Just
I loved
stay
what you
there.
said about that because I was like, man, I'm glad you,
I
because I
didn't-
wanted to come back to
I
that.
didn't come up with
Well,
that.
still though.
I took it from David Foster Wallace. You ever
Nice.
read
Okay.
Infinite Jest before?
No, I
It's
haven't
only the
read
longest book of all time.
Okay.
I read it. No, I'm not. Just humble brag. I read
Hey.
the longest book of all time. But he says that about tennis players, about athletes, about any sort of skill, about where you are and training and for your skill, and that's the people who like go the distance is the one that be like, I'm in a plateau now. Don't give up.
Heck
and
yeah.
Don't get frustrated.
right.
Anyways,
No, I love that.
I wish I
mean,
came up with that, but I didn't.
Well,
Still a good point either way, though. You know,
It is a
I
good
mean,
point.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, David Foster Wallace, one of the best American writers of all time.
So as far as like your approach with the band now, do you feel like you kind of like by kind of like, do you delegate a lot of responsibility, or do you give people more of a voice in what's going on, or how do you?
He shuts it down.
I shut all voices
You
down.
shut all voices down.
Shut
and
all
then he
voices
fucking
down.
he hired Janice to fucking.
I hired Janice, which she's obviously not doing a good enough job.
Well, you know, maybe she just doesn't work on Sundays. I don't
You know,
know.
yeah. All right, Chick-fil-A,
Yeah,
Janice.
yeah, Chick-fil-A
All right,
Janice. Chick-fil-A Janice is a great band
Chick-fil-A
name.
there you go. So there you go. That's a new project name. There we
I'm
go.
sorry to interrupt. Okay, please answer the question now.
No, I think like encouraging everybody's voice, and I think to get to some kind of like hybrid of you know, not wanting to be overly assertive, but also being able to pursue like what the vision is. It's kind of having frequent but low key like checkpoints on like kind of where are things going,
Right.
and where are we trying to go,
Right.
and what are the best ways to do that. Like part of the thing is realizing like you have around you, hopefully in anybody in any band, or it could be a business. Well, it is a business, right?
Yeah.
In any business or venture, I guess is the word I'm looking for. In any kind of venture, it's more like bucket agnostic, right? In any venture is like, do you have like some kind of shared vision? And if you do, and if there's accountability to the vision, I feel like you don't have to be as assertive in a negative way.
Yeah.
Because you have this consensus.
You would hope so, anyways. Yeah.
Well, but and you need to check on it, and you need to foster the growth of it. And if you go about it that way, I think you're going to learn more about what your vision or what that vision looks like to everybody else too.
right.
Which also increases,
Right.
I feel like everybody's buy-in to that
Right.
thing, and it makes it a mutual vision, right? If you're like, hey, this is my vision, and this is what we're trying to do, well, as soon as you say this is my vision, this is what we're trying to do, you've just said mine and we.
right.
And that kind of doesn't really work, right? It has to be this is our vision and this is what we can
Yeah,
do.
you gotta sell it to him.
And well, I don't even think that. You gotta learn what it is from them. Like you're learning from people. I think it's like good, like they always say good management, like right? It all comes down to like good people leadership.
right.
And it's hearing your people.
Right.
And it's understanding everybody's strengths and weaknesses and encouraging growth, maybe where they have weaknesses, but also lifting up those strengths. I think there's like so much to that, you know, a lot of times like art contexts maybe sometimes leave behind because there's so much passion involved.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the way I'm thinking about it now is like, hey, if I knew everything, I'd be on like a Relics podcast.
Right.
You know, if I had it all figured out, you know, I would have like a huge.
Did you just diss our podcast?
What I'm saying is, if I had all the answers, right, I would be
Okay,
getting phone calls from Janice
Uh-huh.
saying, "Hey, you need to come to New York." You know,
Sorry, it's not Howard Stern. Bud.
yeah, not
I'm
Howard
sorry,
Stern,
I'm not
dude.
Joe Rogan.
I'm pretty pissed that all,
Okay.
you know, We got to do better. No.
But we gave you
Gotta
free
work
Scotch.
what you got.
Hey, let me say this.
Deal with it.
I watch this thing every week
Yeah, I know.
religiously,
We're
and I'm commenting the whole way through.
Well, okay, yeah, we're losing viewers and comments because you're not actually watching it and you're actually on it.
No, but there's you gotta recognize that, right? If you had everything figured out, then you wouldn't be working through it. You wouldn't be working
Sure.
through it. So for
Yeah.
me, like I'm trying to be super honest with myself, right? That's part of the process. Like if I had all the answers, so I want to listen to the people that I'm around, whether that's other bands. I spitball stuff by you all the time. I
Right.
talk to a lot of different people trying to learn, hey, how are you thinking about this? How are you? Because if I knew the answers, right, I would be where that's just something that you got to like recognize how much there's to learn.
Yeah, I
Just
think
like guitar, right?
Yeah.
Or piano, right? If you were like, hey, I don't need to ask any questions.
I don't.
well,
That's my scenario. No, but I'm teasing.
it's
of
it's like
course
any
not.
other skill. Leadership is a skill in that in the sense it's like kind of like leading from behind rather than leading from the front. You know what I mean? And then also, I think a big thing is delegating responsibilities is a huge thing. Because, like it kind of speaks to what you're saying in the sense of like realizing where you're not the best and where somebody else might be better at it. And if they have a vested interest in what you're doing, maybe it's better for them to take that role on.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
and that's And yeah, so I don't know. I think that's something I've really in the last like year or so I've been really kind of getting on, and also trying to be better at hearing like everybody else's perspective on things, listening to other people's perspectives on things. Because again, it's supposed to be everyone's supposed to be bought into the vision, and if everyone just feels like they're working for somebody else's vision, it's like, well, what? It's okay. Well, this is cool. We're doing some cool stuff, but it's like, what am I actually doing here? You know. So
100%.
We've got a good business model. He pretty much does everything, and then we just show up.
Okay.
Well, you
No,
know,
I'm teasing.
no, we've been pretty good at delegating.
No, we
stuff,
have,
and
and we're all on board and everything too. I was just making it.
yeah, we had a good meeting.
We're just joking.
Yeah.
We're just a couple guys hanging out. Just joking.
And I think like
But go back to what you said. I do think that there's got to be some head honcho in charge about it. You know what I mean? And not even to make like executive decisions or anything like that. More just being like I don't know. I don't know. Like name any other business where it's not like a captain or like a, CEO or anything like that. It's there's got to be somebody in charge, and obviously treat your employees nice. But at the same time, like a band is so much different because it's like you can't do this on your own.
It's not employees. It's the wrong way of looking at it. It's just delegating responsibility.
That's what I was trying to say. We're not employees. Well, like, not that you have to sell your vision or anything like that. You're sharing it, and you're like, I want this guy. It's like, hey, look, this is what we could do if we're all on board to this and everything like that. Another pirate reference. But yeah, exactly. Or captain reference, rather. But the whole point is that you want to do it together and everything like that.
Right.
And then eventually you can go down the line, and then I think only maybe one band ever made it work, which is the Doors, and then that was the only one where it's like we all make decisions equally.
Yeah.
And that was it.
There's some bands.
But I do think some
that's an older model also where it wasn't like you had someone who spoke on behalf of the band, which kind of was like the band leader in those. But it was like really labels and everybody else were making those decisions for them.
Yeah, you're right.
So, but what I will say for anybody that wants to start a band, or for anybody that wants to, any band leaders out there right now that might be watching or that are interested, something that I've learned, it's very important to try and make sure that you know what everybody's vision in the band is.
Yeah.
That way you can try and figure out where those differences are, and then really discuss why those differences are there, and then figure out if you can get on the same page with that. Because typically you will.
Because you're not hiring anybody.
No.
You don't want to hire people.
Right.
'Cause then it's a job, and then it's just like they don't give a fuck about you.
It's not financially viable to do it that way either.
It's like cashier at Walmart. They're gonna take a little bit longer on their 15-minute break. You know what I mean? So yeah, you've gotta find people that like. You're like, oh, hey, how much do you love music? And they're like, I don't know. I listen to music every now and then. I play it so long. Like, okay, so do you not want to do this for a living? And do you not want to share an amazing experience and do this? And they're like, no. It's like, all right, well then you're out. Bud.
Right.
Well, and
we're not including you.
Right. That's
It's
better.
not hiring you. It's like joining a super secret club.
Yeah, and please, for the love of God, if you're out there and you are either a band leader or you're starting a band and you're having, like, thinking about what your vision is, please do not. I hope it is not. Hey, be famous.
Be
You
famous.
know,
Yeah.
get in it
that's
for the. If
true.
you're gonna make art, man, and this is a big, like, conviction of mine, right? Do it for the right reasons, right?
Right.
Do it because you don't know anything else to do with
Or
your
maybe
life.
you
Like,
can't,
that-
or
this
you
is all
can't
that
do
I-
anything.
Can't do anything else.
Like,
That's
and
really
if you take it away from me, like, your entire world falls apart. Because it's, again, 91 days. And I'm about to...
You're about to lose it.
No,
yeah.
I've already lost my
Yeah.
mind. I've
Yeah.
been talking to a volleyball for the past fucking 2 weeks.
Wilson.
Wilson!
Yeah, get into it. Get into it for the right, the right reason, and that part can be a little tricky, right? But I mean, gosh, there's something to be said. We got enough folks, I think, in the game, for the wrong reasons. Get in it for the right one, and
Get famous, get money, fuck bitches, somewhere around. That's like those 3 things.
all those things. I just
Question
I'm like,
marks and then profit. Yeah, that's
that line gets blurred sometimes though, because, and I know that I've been I get like that line gets blurred for me quite often too, because it's like, in order to continue to do what you like to do it for the art, you actually have to make it financially sustainable as well. So how do you do that without really sacrificing the artistic integrity there, and then finding that balance? The balance exists. It's just
thanks, Brian.
the balance exists. It's just a matter of like finding. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes along the way, and you're gonna make a lot of dumb decisions along the way, and we're all still gonna be making those decisions too.
Trying to find that balance is no reason to not go try.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, everyone's gonna struggle with that, right? Because we're not perfect.
Right.
But I think make sure you are thinking about it that way. And because that's the other part too. Like, you're not going to get in front of an audience and fake them out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people smell.
I see that shit.
People smell.
Been
cow
there,
shit
done that.
real quick, right? And it's not just to please your audience too, but think about like the responsibility, like, as an artist, right?
Yeah.
You're a communicator. You're a healer. Sometimes you're providing a break.
Yeah.
Right? You got a lot of. There's a lot of weight that comes with like what you're doing. I think if you really care about it,
Yeah,
just do it because you
100%.
care about it. I guess that's the best way. Do it because you care about it, because you care about the process. Maybe you care about the craft. You care about the audience. Do it because you care. We need more people that care.
Yeah. This is actually a really good segue into the next thing I want to talk about is
Thanks, Janice, for the segue.
We hatched it out with her.
Yeah, she.
before you-
the
So
different
one thing Cheryl did right.
well, yeah. Cheryl, you're on the fucking ropes.
We care, as you can tell.
Yeah.
We care.
the difference between like musically between this project and Herta Watts, and do you feel like it's obviously it must represent more of where you're at now as an artist versus where you were 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. I guess maybe I'll start with the part that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
The part that hasn't changed is it being really focused still out of songwriting. Like that's my biggest passion in the whole like musical adventure, right?
Same,
is the
yeah.
songwriting part.
Yeah.
Like that's the part that even before I could play, I was singing and writing. I've always been in love with the writing process kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that part has kind of stayed a big part of what this is. I think the things that are different, right? It's different people, right? So obviously the way that this group of musicians interacts is going to be different. And I think it's a very special thing. And I think that the backgrounds of everybody in this group are also very different. So I think you're getting a lot of different perspectives. You're getting a lot of chemistry from different things. I think there's like some really cool synergies and lifestyle synergies of some of the people in there, but then also radically different things too. Like, for example, like, well, what does that mean? For example, like Max and myself are both really into surfing, right? We've been into it for years and years and years. We were friends and surfed together before we ever played together. So there's a bit of like that complementary culture that we understand, and I think that brings something to the music, has something to do with some of the music we like too. Not
Right.
necessarily, but there are definitely things there.
There's a culture there that you share.
Yeah, there's like this other ethos
Right.
component to like not only our friendship, but also some of the things that we both really like to do. I think obviously Aaron and Brandon played together and have played together for years and years and years. So they bring like a special like spitball chemistry to the thing as well. And then all the individual interactions, like Max's interaction to Aaron and Brandon, right? Or and if you started like drawing the dots, right? There's all these different things that are going on there, and I think there's a lot of fearlessness in this group.
That's great.
So like, you know, everyone is a really good listener, and everyone also I feel like has a high acumen of improvisational music, which is I think where that fearlessness comes from.
Right.
Like it may be different kinds of improv. Like maybe not everyone's sitting down listening to like a bunch of Herbie Hancock, or like I really love like Miles Davis, right?
Yeah.
And maybe not everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm listening to Miles Davis all the time.
Right.
But they're listening to other things, right? So maybe it's like some really, really spacey out there stuff, or electronic music, or maybe it's like Rush, or, you know, but all these components, the one thing that they have that's the same outside of genre is a fearlessness of going for it.
Right.
And there's like something cool about like unabated, like, like bravery.
Yeah.
And I think it encourages the listening. So not all of the music is just Sun Ra. It's not like, you know, everywhere. But when the moments come for someone to start moving the music somewhere, I think everyone knows like how to listen for that.
It's very important. Yeah,
and says,
man.
hey, we're going here. It's not like, oh, well, maybe we're changing keys, or like, hey, we're getting modal. No, it's like, okay, here we're going this thing.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. Like it's a smoother transmission.
Right.
Like that's the biggest
makes
difference.
sense, yeah.
The gear ratios are very finely tuned, I feel like, in this one.
Yeah.
So even if the song structure may not be, the shifting is.
Right.
And I think that's a cool thing to be a part of, like, at least for me playing. I'm like, like I'm always getting surprised.
Yeah, man. It's a huge thing to be able, and like having the, like, not only like the understanding of how to set your ego aside and be like malleable to what's happening on stage, like in the improv moments specifically, but also like the ability to be able to pull those things off. It's one thing to understand something; it's another thing to be able to like pull it off. You know.
Sure.
So yeah, man. It's speaking of Aaron.
Hey.
Aaron, thanks for joining, bro.
What's up, buddy?
Yeah, man.
Hello, friend.
I think the camera just died there, Bill.
It didn't. Just give it a second, bud.
Oh, okay,
You know, it's
sorry.
It's thinking.
Now
It died. Yeah, it died. All right, we're gonna fix the camera
Thanks,
in
Cheryl.
a second here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
I know. I'm sorry.
So as far as like stylistically, what would you say like the differences are like in the genre, like what you're doing now?
Okay. So I think the genre is like, so I've always really loved not trying to be constrained to
Yeah,
genre,
I feel you.
which
yeah.
probably in some ways helps, in other ways hurts.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not like if you don't come to see us, it's not like you're going to see, you know, I'm trying to think of something that's like super atypical to a genre.
Like any pop band.
Yeah, like necessarily like a pop band, or you're not coming to see. I'm trying to think of like how to pick on something without picking on it, right? But it's not like I'm going to see this or that, to where
Right.
you know, like from start to end, this is the vein that we're in,
Right.
I think that contributes part to that fearlessness, right?
Right.
We'll do like there's a song that's on the record and we've played live a couple times called Regina, right? And that song is a soft song about a wonderful woman who I think gave me that song from the other side.
Oh wow.
There's a whole story on that. But that song is a very light, gentle song, right? And then there's something in there like a song called Nichols, which could be from a Schofield record. So it's like, you know, there's definitely a wide range of things, but I don't want to not play that stuff or segment out to where I've got like 20 projects
Right.
to try to represent those things in its soulness. And I know that, like, you know, that comes with a myriad of issues from a marketing
A lot of challenges. Yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, I'm thinking about it like, hey, you know, that's the selfish part of like the artist
Right.
that I'm maybe still working through or trying to figure out how its place in the world.
Yeah.
You know, you know, these are these songs that came at this period of time, and I don't want to shelf them all because it doesn't fit the sound of this thing, or you know.
Yeah, there's something to be said about first off, like if you're trying to market to a pop audience, and obviously that's not going to work, right?
Right.
But what you can do is find a niche community, and like we were kind of talking about this beforehand, where it's like it's better to have like, at least to me, it's better to have, I don't know, 100,000 loyal supporters where you're in charge of your content versus, you know, 1 million passive listeners that are and own 10% of that content because of you're with labels and all kinds of other shit that goes on. You know what I mean? So there's something said about that. And also, I think that you can there's an argument to be made about, even though genre may be switching throughout like each song that you're playing, if you as a band sounds cohesive, then you can make those different genres sound like you guys doing those genres.
Yeah, that's the other part I was going to piggyback, and I think that's happening. Like, I think that fearlessness is that like gel that allows us to be able to take those leaps.
Right.
And if anything, I mean, anyone that would come to a show or buy an album or listen to the music, at least I sleep well knowing that, hey, you're getting our honesty.
Yeah, you're getting you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're getting our honesty. I didn't put this on the record as a filler.
Right.
You know, I didn't say, well, I got to have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, and
Right.
like number 9 is a gap and I'm just going to like write this thing.
Right.
You're going to get real music from this group of people.
Right.
You know, right? Because everyone is writing in this project.
Yeah.
You know, and you're going to get that. And at least there's a honesty into that. Like, you know, I may not be able to give you like one thing in one vein. I'm going to give you us.
Right.
And it's a relationship, right? You enter into a relationship with the audience.
Yeah,
And I think like an
100%.
honest relationship. Everyone's got their things, right?
Yeah,
And-
man.
and, yeah.
You've been talking a lot about recording your album and everything like that, and not trying to be rude or anything. I didn't know you were. Like, where are you recording it, and is it done yet?
All right. So that's super exciting. So we were, you know, earlier when we were talking like, hey, it's kind of always like a retrospective.
Yeah.
The cool part about this one is I'm not sick of it.
Yeah.
You know, which is like I've never had that before.
Right.
So I'm super excited, I guess, first of all, that it's coming, that we're really happy with the way things are coming together. We're like surprising ourselves, I think, as we get to the end.
Yeah.
Or at least I feel surprised by it.
It's such an exciting feeling.
Yeah. And so we've been doing it. We did it mostly around
the AV4 channel mixer.
That's right. We got
Yeah.
There's this mixer from like 2004.
Hey, it
No,
probably
you know the
sounds good
sad
still.
thing about that is like almost to the end of like Heard of Watts playing regularly.
Still using it.
We were still we had bought like
Wow.
a big I think 2436 like PreSonus,
Okay.
and we were using that at all the shows and live tape and everything, multi-tracked and all that. But we still use that as a submixer
Yeah.
for like certain things like
And
the
then
drums
went
and
into it?
and then one night like almost towards the end like it went like somebody jacked that thing.
Oh no.
And I was so sad because actually I think Sean had taken it from a gig and had like put it in his car, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he like when he got home or whatever, he took like the bass out and all this other stuff. But like, you know, like sometimes you shouldn't leave anything in your car, folks. But
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, you're gonna leave like some stands or some junk because you've just lugged like 50
I don't
things
leave
up the-
anything in my car for all
Well,
you
I
fucking
just say
thieves out
I'll
there.
say I know you, you know, but you go through the end of that or whatever, and I think he had left a couple things in the car, and it had got popped, which was sad because it just as a
Jeez.
legacy piece kind of thing that
Yeah.
had like so much song writing literally that had coursed through its veins.
No. Wait, I'm so
It's
sorry. I
gone,
thought
yeah.
it was the big guy that got sold, but the little guy. From
No, the
AV?
little
Oh,
the one that was
no.
like worth nothing.
Hey,
You know,
yeah.
at that
guess what?
point, it wasn't
Sentimental
even worth
value,
20.
though.
It wasn't even worth $20.
Maybe-
It just had everything had been written through it. So I was
Right.
like,
But maybe some 13-year-old kids got it now.
that's what I hope.
That's what I.
That's
hope
what I'm
too.
like. At least you know
But it's
maybe.
probably in the junkyard.
Probably. But in my mind, some like guy was walking by, saw it in there, and like his kid was trying to record, and he's like, "This is the only way."
Yeah.
And then that kid is like, you know, the second coming of Michael Jackson or something.
That
But
we don't.
But anyways, going
outside of the
yeah.
outside of the unscrupulous allegations.
Allegations.
That's what
That's
I'm
all
saying.
that happened.
Allegations. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Can you pour me up another
I
drink?
cried when he died. Yeah, I'll be the bartender. But still following up with that question. That I
Yeah.
asked. So yeah, where are you recording the album?
So we've recorded it in a couple different places, but it's all been like home done.
Okay.
So it's been like we've recorded stuff at my place. We've recorded stuff at Max's place. We've recorded some stuff.
Oh, you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, nice.
So we're kind of taking that homegrown approach to this thing. It's trying to say like, hey, you know, when we started this project, we said, hey, let's see what we can do. I think it's going to get a professional treatment on the mastering side of the house.
Okay,
mixing
yeah.
But a lot of it's been done with, actually, like a cool side note, a lot of it's been done with reference tracks from like my favorite albums, which have all been done like on tape. And so we went to great lengths to curate it around that feel.
Wait,
So like,
what do you
recording
mean?
on tape?
so it's not tape, but we're running
sorry.
some really sweet tape emulators.
Okay.
Nice, cool.
And then using reference tracks, right, to try to really get like what makes that feel.
That's what you meant by that. Okay, I was confused
Yeah, me
as
too.
yeah.
What kind of reference tracks?
Okay, so it's no mystery, right? I'm a fan of like a lot of old blues records. A fan of like a lot of Miles Davis records.
Yeah.
And obviously like Tedeschi Trucks Band.
Billy's having a fucking aneurysm over there because he hates all that.
Yeah. And
I don't hate it. I just am unaware.
but the recording quality is phenomenal. Like if one among a bazillion things, one great thing about Tedeschi Trucks Band is they really, really care about their recording process.
Yeah, man, yeah.
And their records are absolutely crystalline.
Yeah.
It's done. They have
It's all analog, right?
Yeah, they have the blessing of doing all analog and tape.
Yeah.
I do not have the finances to do that.
Sure.
So what I'm doing is
Where do
I'm
you even
trying
buy
to get
tape
it.
anymore. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
well, I'm trying to get it. Apparently the trucks have a vault of tape.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
But no, I mean, I love the way that those records feel.
Yeah.
I love the way
Yeah.
that the saturation happens.
There's
There's
a warmth
clarity.
to 'em.
Yeah, the warmth and the clarity, despite all that. So those records always blew my mind, just in the way that they feel.
Yeah.
Like when you have really good headphones on, or you're in the car, or you're put it on, your home system or whatever, and you got your eyes closed. I feel like, gosh, outside of the great musicianship, that record has a feel.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to look at those kind of records, and not just those. Like I said, there's other things, but listening to those as kind of a way to build reference tracks.
Yeah.
So like starting with that, thinking of how they compose their mix, how they're getting that tape feel, how might we get close to it without tape, right? It's obviously people say it's not
I'm
tape.
really excited about
It's
this
not tape.
album. I can't wait.
But it's,
Yeah, I'm
it's been
stoked to
fun.
hear
I
it.
mean, we've taken a lot of time on it. It's been one of those things, kind of like we were saying with like the formation of the band and all this stuff.
Yeah.
We're just not gonna rush it.
Yeah.
The first like teaser kind of promo came out for it the other day. It was like a minute clip of a song. Because I think we're to the point where we're gonna put a date out there pretty soon.
Oh, nice.
So it's not
man.
ready for a date yet, but it'll be. It's coming.
You have
a name?
You done recording?
So all the instrumentation is pretty much done. We're going and re-going through all the vocals now. So we
Okay.
laid like bass vocal tracks, and now we're going
Do you
back.
want to
through.
race and see who can finish our album first?
you're
'Cause that's
definitely
You
what
guys
gonna
we
will.
do
do.
first.
You
That's
guys
what
will
we are,
probably
too.
beat us.
No
I
way.
doubt it.
We're
We're
gonna
a
try
while
to
to
take the
go.
time with it.
We're right there too.
But
we
I'm
got to do the
I'm
vocals.
hoping soon.
We're almost done with
Yeah,
that.
that's the thing. We got to go back through, do vocals, and then we're gonna have the entire thing addressed by a couple different like sets of ears.
Oh, if you guys need a set of ears, let me know. I'd love to check it
We
out.
should
Yeah.
have the album release on the exact same day at two different venues.
Do a
No, that'd be
Titans
so mean.
of Ten.
Will you
That
please let us know when your album releases so we don't fucking do it at the same time?
or
Like there hasn't been shows in forever. And it's like
or we could do like a double album
double
release at
album-
one show.
Double album release, bro.
Ooh, well, I don't think COVID's gonna let that many people in, bud.
It'll
It's gonna be just like a normal show then, right?
Yeah.
I know we're just spitballing right now, but a double album release, everybody wins. Everybody sells the album. I don't know how that works.
Could be sick.
out.
Could be sick.
Be great.
It would be
But
like
down, try
Big
it out.
Boy and Andre 3000.
It'd be a
There you go.
guarantee.
There you go.
Album at the same time,
We would
maybe.
guarantee to be make some money through the door though, at least that much. You know what I mean?
Well,
At least 25% capacity.
Yes.
I'll get
Bro.
Cheryl to talk to Janice and
Yeah, if
we'll
you can get Janice in front of this, that
if
would
Janice
be great.
is in for it and Cheryl's, I'm gonna give her the go ahead.
Yeah, because they did
Yeah.
such a
So-
bang up job with this. So.
Yeah, they did.
No.
But that just if there's nowhere to grow from here, I mean, hopefully they'll they can surprise us.
Yeah, that'd be
I don't
great.
know. You got more faith in Janice than I do.
It would be funny to
And
have
it's nothing against Janice.
some
it's
sort
just-
of healthy competition who could put out an
Or
album
just do
first.
or just to do,
really funny.
just do it on purpose just to fuck with people. It's like,
No, I know,
why did
yeah,
you guys
exactly.
do that?
Because we wouldn't be fighting against each other. It would just be just to get y'all riled up.
Yeah,
and get
exactly.
Well, we're definitely trying to get it there. I mean, it's kind of that whole like homegrown thing.
No, I know.
Because there's such like we don't have the pockets, to do session after session after
I
session.
feel that,
I don't
man,
think
yeah.
anybody does,
Right.
but-
Well, and that was the thing is like, hey, I've gone in to do recordings before, and you go into the studio, even if you love the studio, and you're on the clock, right? The dollar is ticking. So how many times you can go in and mess with, some of those things? And
Ask him that question, but then ask how many times can Anton do it. But ask that to him.
I think that's a.
I don't put a dollar sign on creativity.
No, he
is all I'm
doesn't.
saying.
There you go.
6 hours on
It doesn't matter if it costs more money to me.
Guitar parts. Are you kidding me?
Don't make it sound like I suck at doing it. It's just there's layers on layers of tracks. So it's like, you gotta fucking. It takes me a long time to do the tracks. I gotta play through a 6-minute song.
Ben, perfect.
Just don't. If you don't like a lot of takes.
But they're perfect, and he's like, "No, that one wasn't good. Run it back."
That's
I'm
right.
just like, are you kidding me?
So I fucking demand perfection in the studio.
Go for it. Go for it. Like you said, it's frozen in time. But it was one of those things where we didn't have the pockets to.
Yeah.
So we said, hey, we're gonna do as much of this as we can. I mean, how many Grammys did we see won last year? With people just. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people that are doing it out of their house at this point. Like,
I'd be interested in knowing that.
That's what I'm. You know what I'm saying?
Did the whole thing out of her house.
Nowadays it's possible, and I'm not saying you don't need help. Like we're gonna go and get this thing bounced by some really fantastic ears.
Sure.
Who work with a lot of great people to kind of vet this for us and kind of sharpen the blade. But I think like the meat and potatoes part of it, you can do yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
And then from there, obviously, you might need some professional help. Like experience counts, right? So
it's a small level up with the extreme professionalism to what you can actually do at your house. Obviously, you need to be well versed and be able to be the engineer. But once you get that down,
but
hang on,
good input and good inputs.
He's an elitist, so he's gonna say a lot of things that is gonna be like, oh well, but no, you don't know it because
no,
anyways, but keep going.
The point I'm trying to make is that like someone like Billie Eilish is using predominantly electronic
and nobody knows
tracking.
Who she is.
Electronic tracking is what I was saying. She's not using a live band, so there is something to be said about a properly treated room, and then miking techniques, and also the access to expensive equipment, and the knowledge of an engineer, and having like another ear on it outside of someone who's in the band.
But I'm leaning towards to Ben's side. Is saying that you can figure it out.
I don't think. Yeah. Like you can do it that way. You can 100% do it that way.
Everybody
it can sound great. I'm not saying that it's going to sound worse or better the way that we're doing it.
No.
But it's to me it's like I don't know. I don't have that knowledge to do it myself like that. And also something for me when I go into the studio, there's a certain mindset you get into where it's work. Like you're in a room treated for sound with no windows, no access to the outside world. You put your phone away and you just work. And before you know it, 12 hours have gone by, and you're just like, "What the fuck happened?"
But Ben's got a good point. You can take as much time as you want to at home.
And that's what I was gonna say. One cool part about it, and it's not better or worse, but one of the things that actually I'll just speak for myself, right? I don't speak for everyone, like authoritatively in the group.
Yeah.
But like the thing that for me was important was that I did not want the record or my playing on the record. I did not want it to feel like work.
Yeah.
Like, when I removed the constraints and I removed the dollars and I removed all the cost strain and all that kind of stuff, it created a situation where, look, I mean, I can take at this thing 50 times, and if I'm not liking it, I want to work on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And all I've done is build up motifing, right? So I can listen back to the takes. I can say, hey, listen, the way I did the first 10 seconds was great. I'm going into this thing, and so like I'm also notorious. I never write like parts, like solo parts and stuff, and like on the record, right? You'll hear them. I probably won't play them that way live, right? But for the record, kind of to your point of where you do want stuff locked in time, I will work out more motif driven, like very specific things, and I'll build them, and to take away like the constraint of having to try to do that on
the clock.
On a clock. I didn't want it to sound like work. That was like my biggest thing. And like new technologies. So like this is a cool thing for anyone that is doing a lot of recording. As you go through your process, because electronic instruments do sound so stinking cool and good, and I envy a lot of keyboard players because you have so many of those sounds like professionally in the box. So when you go through direct,
direct in, but we don't need any pickups.
It's amazing.
And all your settings, just press a button, you got your sound already.
Well, that's all they really are anyway. It's all the keys are just space bars.
Yeah,
exactly.
You just point. You got a mouse back.
Yeah, you don't need.
You can transpose too, though, so that's pretty rad. That is pretty rad.
Can't do that.
But one thing that's sick is IRs, right?
Capos or anything. Anyways, keep going.
No, IRs, man. IRs. So like when you start talking about like conventional, guitars, bass, things like that, there are things that when I became aware of them probably like a year or two ago, They've been around longer than that, but like the technology has really started to support it. So you see things like, what Kemper is doing, Fractal is doing, what individual IR companies are doing.
Yeah.
And so when I started playing on that Mesa Boogie amp, right, it has that direct line out, and it has a cab simulator in it. But I took that to the next layer of their cab. Mesa Boogie amps, first of all, love them. They're the bomb. I went through a lot to find like that amp for me. Like
Sure.
that's like works really well for me. However, their cab simulator, I felt like, in all honesty of the product, right, that needed a little bit of help still. So I ended up routing that signal through some different IRs and started messing with, hey, if I bring this into the software, right, what can I really do?
What software are you using?
So for the record, it's all done on Logic, right?
Okay.
It's all done on 10.5.
Nice.
All the studio house side of things is all the Abbey Road stuff.
Ooh, okay. All right. So you're using all the simulators inside of Abbey Road.
A
Or
lot of the Abbey Road stuff.
The DAW, anyways.
Yep,
Or,
there-
sorry, not the VST. Sorry.
Yeah, and there is some cool stuff like natively in Logic from a plugin perspective that we're using.
Did Max show you that?
No, I searched out how could I get to the sound based on the reference tracks.
Me and Max are obsessed with all that shit.
And
with the
well, it's
VST
cool because
and
I can like
DAW.
throw stuff off of him.
Yeah.
That's like what we were saying, like with surfing. Right? There's like some synergies where like there's just mutual interest on different things, and I could be
Sure.
like, hey, what do we think about like how to curate the sound of these tracks? And he'll go all the way down the rabbit hole with me,
Yup.
and so I feel like it drives like us both learning something,
That's
but then
good.
something really great coming out of it. But the Abbey Road stuff, Logic stuff, and then messing with the guitars through IRs, and I've got like probably 20 or 30 setups in there. So once I plug my amp in, I've got it set. I cannot play it live the way that I record it from a settings perspective, just the
Right.
way that it sounds when it comes through. But I kind of know both now, and I'll go in there and I've got about 20 different sets of like settings and cabinets.
To make the tape sound.
Well, to get it to sound like it does in real life. So the
Yeah,
great part
yeah.
is I can put headphones on and I can take this stuff at 3 a.m. with my 3-year-old sleeping like 2 doors down, and on the headphones it sounds very much like I would want it to sound in the room at a click of a button.
Right.
It's
And it's-
wild how great it's sounding.
It's
digital.
getting like,
It's
and I'll A/B
ridiculous.
it in the room, so I
Sure.
mic'd crap up and room mic'd it and brought out all my fancy mics, and I just kind of A and B'd it as a reference file until I said, hey, like in the digital world, this is responding different. Like how to get natural feedback
Right.
digitally,
or,
Yeah.
or sustained. or something
yeah,
like that, yeah.
but it's possible. And I just sat for way embarrassing amount of hours.
Nothing wrong with that, man. That's part
But
of the
those were
craft.
ways to try to overcome it, because like you said, it's hard. How do you get into the studio outside of the mindset stuff? How do you walk away with like the high fidelity kind of feel? And
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the things that we've worked really hard on this record to do. The bass is direct, the guitars are direct.
That's awesome.
The guitars are direct.
It makes it a
through
lot easier
Sims
to do
and
it.
IRs.
Yeah.
The drums we recorded in a live room.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then
as soon as you
keys
can figure out
are
direct
obviously
drums, that would be the next.
they're
thing.
getting
Well,
close.
they
dude.
have
They're
them. The
getting
electronic
close,
drum
but
kits sound
it's-
pretty good.
Ugh, you just
They're
can't
not
get-
there yet. They're not
can't
there
get
yet.
that kick ever.
But the IRs, the way they're going for like guitar cabinets,
What's
I feel
IRs?
like
I
they're
don't know
good.
what that is.
So it is an impulse response.
I was thinking infrared. Like
So they take
Predator.
they take a mic and they do this thing. It's like a pitch scan.
Uh-huh.
So they run a sound like a audible like ping. It sounds like
Right.
this, like woo,
Yeah.
and it goes from like way low and audible to way high and audible.
Right.
And they run it through a speaker.
Okay.
And once they run that sound through the speaker, that's like a baselining. And then they know exactly how that speaker responds through the entire frequency spectrum. And now you have an IR.
I think Fishman has a similar system in like the Martins with those pickups where they have like where it's like you can go between the actual pickup or you can go between
And they
like,
blend them and stuff.
where they
Yeah, the
blend 'em,
aura
yeah.
stuff and all that kind of stuff. There's some similar things for like acoustic resonance,
Right.
and they'll do it with all the different mics.
Right.
One more time, what's it called? You said.
Impulse response.
Impulse Response is an amazing DJ fucking electronic band.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's coming. They're gonna get that wired out, I'm sure, with drums in the next couple of years, and you're gonna be able to
Impulse
go in and
response.
pull up. I mean, they have stuff out there, but I agree, it's not. I don't think I'm not aware of one where the drums I've heard and I'm like, I'm sold.
Yeah, it's not 100% there yet, but it's definitely
then
getting there.
And then anybody, anywhere, can record an album and it sounds like just perfect, like Miles Davis.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that at a certain point.
He's like, it's never gonna happen. He will.
I'm not saying it's never gonna happen. I'm just saying we're not.
He was talking about like, well, let's get a bodysuit so that we can like experience shows. But you don't think that everybody in the entire world can just not ever have to play an analog instrument again?
No, I believe that's gonna happen for sure.
Well, then don't give me a no.
I just don't think it's ever gonna sound like that.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
So you don't think
it's
it will?
It's always gonna sound of the time. It's never gonna sound of another time. You know what I mean?
No.
Okay.
It's getting. You're probably right in the fact that, it may never sound exactly, but it may get to the point where you can't distinguish the two.
Yeah.
Right? Like the reference files on the guitars, when I've like mic'd it up perfectly, and I'm like, this is exactly how I would do it at a show. This is exactly how I would do it in the studio. I'm absolutely loving the sound, and then I'll go and I'll spend the same time to basically build an IR equivalent of that, and then run the same amp. And it is a real amp. So that's probably a little different than some of the modeling, but some of that sounds really good too, man.
Yeah.
And I push it through. If I honestly A/B it, and I mix the tracks up.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, to be honest, it is really, really tough. Like,
well, already in like a flawless file for digital music versus a record, everyone always, if they're like super hipster, like, oh, just a record just sounds better and everything like that. If you compare the two, it not only can you not tell the difference on the frequency of the wave file, but on top of that, you can't even record low bass frequencies on a record. That's why, like, every single old school record, like, it just sounds tinny and there's
very
no
mid-rangey.
bass, very mid-rangey.
yeah, okay.
But there's not enough room on a record and everything like that.
So you have some artistic constraints on that side of the fence, yeah.
But they figured out a way that you can make a little bit more of a lower wave file and everything like that. I'm sorry, not a lower wave file, a lower frequency in the recording of a record. But then doing that, you lose the amount of vinyl that you're allowed to use. So then you can only have like 15 minutes on the side.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So anyways.
I didn't know that. That's kind of cool.
Way of the future.
Yeah, totally.
Digital's way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm on Ben's side.
Well, it definitely surprised me because I still play, right? Got through tube amp, and I've got very specific speakers I want to use and very specific setup on the guitar.
That you would go that route, because I see when you play live,
because I haven't been convinced.
Super analog.
Yeah, I'm like super, and my signal chain is very slim.
I see.
So like I'm very into that.
You've lost everybody, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Who doesn't know anything about
I'm sorry.
what we're talking about?
We've gone down that rabbit hole. No, but my setup is very traditional. I guess is the way, the best way to say it. It's very traditional because I really believe in the sound of that, but that's what surprised me.
Yeah.
And part of it is survival, right? I needed a way to record where I was not financially constrained. I wasn't creatively constrained. And this was a way that I was happy with what I was getting sonically that allowed me to do that. So, it's part of it's a survival thing. Like, right, you adapt to survive a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
It was like my creativity and ability to get some things done the way I want die, or I can adapt. And so that's kind of...
Digital music is the future, Aphex Twin is God, and James Murphy from LCD Sound System is the coming of band.
All right.
Jesus. Then that's the truth. Thank you for agreeing with me. Electronica is God. That's what we're getting to.
Yeah, I got. I'm picking up what you're putting down there, bud.
Yeah. It's the way of the future.
The way. Do you have any strategy in how you're gonna release it at all?
That's even more important.
Yeah, so we're getting close, right? Vocals are pretty much all that's left, and then getting it mastered and touched up, all that kind of thing. For release, so we just, like I was saying, we just released the first kind of tidbit out there on like a couple of the like Instagram and Facebook, and kind of said, hey, this thing is really coming. I think we are, once we get close to where I feel like really secure on what a date's going to look like, and we have a couple things we need to work through on that front. But as soon as we do that, I think we're going to do marketing it as much digitally as we can. And then what I'd like to try to do is I'd like to try to bring it to, we've been lucky to have like a lot of supporters over the years. So whether it be from like the Estilo world and a lot of like continual support kind of from the Herd world into Ben Strok and the Full Electric.
Right.
I want to try to make it available in that sense probably first, right? As a really salute to so many people that have like supported the musical journey.
Sure.
And so I think it'll probably be made available that way first, maybe by like, I don't know if it'll be like strictly pre-sale or what, I'm still thinking about how best to do that, because it's certainly not going to be exclusionary. It's not going to be like, oh, well, if you've been, hip to this thing, you're not going to get access to it. It's not going to be like that. But I kind of want to do like a soft opening, I guess you could say.
Yeah, totally.
That gives a nod to some of those things, but then also allows us an opportunity to, although it was low cost, it was certainly not no cost.
Right.
Of course.
So a certain way that we can kind of help fund back the effort there so we can continue to do new things. We have
like a single sort of situation?
I don't know if it's going to be a single or if we're going to like, one of the things we were talking about is maybe having the record up on the website for like purchase to download only before it goes to all streaming platforms.
Wow.
As a way to give folks an opportunity like, hey, if you're aware of this, because obviously a lot of people may not be aware of it through that process. So, hey, if you're aware of it, you can come here. You can support us for this. We want you to have it early. We're excited. This is a place where you can make sure that you're paying the artist, not Apple or not Spotify.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
There
like
you
where
go.
you can really help us and help us continue to do it because we've got another one we've already started pre-production on.
Right.
Talking about working through,
This guy doesn't stop working.
No, it just goes one to one to one. So, that's a good way that we're looking to get support from our community, And then I think after a certain point after that, it'll go definitely on all digital platforms. And at which case, if you have like Spotify or whatever, you can listen to it for free. So if you can help us through the process, that'll really help get number 2 on the way, get the touring on the way, all those kind of things. And it'll be a nod to wanting to make sure that people that can support us, have access to the thing that we're doing.
Totally.
There's got to be like a name for it. What we were talking about earlier about like recording an album and then being sick of it to the point where you're like, we need to start recording our second album now.
Yeah.
There's got to be
There's
some
got to
sort
be,
of
and
word
I'm
for
not
it.
sure the name, but I definitely have that disease.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like,
totally.
I'm like, all right, well, we have like these 8 or 9 other songs that are on the floor.
It's like, why are we recording these right now?
Can we just start? Well, we'll just start. We just been like talking them through, working them through. Some of them are ones we do like at rehearsal.
Yeah.
A couple of them we've played parts of live.
Yeah.
A couple of them we've actually played live. But we're like, hey, number 2 looks like this and this. That's the great part. This group has so much creativity from everybody. Everybody in this band is a badass.
That's
And
for sure, man.
It would
You got
be
a great
amazing
band.
too, though. Like if that's the way that it evolved to was like as a touring musician, if you could go full time and that's all you were doing and everything like that, it was just you were touring and you were releasing albums the same time that you were recording albums and going on tour, and it was just everything at once. That's probably going to be the streamline effect of it.
I think you're probably not too far from. I mean, that's what's happening in our world, right? Like,
Right, yeah.
we're recording this one, we're prepping it, we're working on live shows, we're doing this and that and the other, and we're already talking about like what does number 2 look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's like unfortunately, it's probably a byproduct of the world we live in, right? It's so
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
It's so
Instant.
Eventually, we'll all be streamlined and hooked up to the internet, and I'm getting robot legs, et cetera, et cetera.
excellent. Okay,
yeah,
what model?
AB1.
Oh, do those come with the IRs?
Oh, yes, I do.
Sick. All right.
But I thought they were infrareds. Like I was Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator, but apparently not.
You
son of a bitch. That was pretty good.
Yeah, that was
Wasn't bad.
That was great, bro. Yeah. So speaking of community, like the Jax community and everything, and like the people that have been supporting you for a long time, I did want to kind of touch on the uniqueness of Jacksonville and the support of its local community. How do we build that to a strong scene, and how do we build an industry around that scene?
You know what? This has come up in a couple of the ones you guys have done. You
Yeah.
know? And so this is a cool question
Yeah.
because I've heard this question a few times, and
We're trying.
I've like thought of like what is the I think the thing is like play. I'm gonna use one bad word. This whole.
Dude, I've dropped several of them.
I
so
know.
you're
I've
good.
been I've been trying to be consciously minded because I don't know if my 3-year-old daughter is on like.
Oh,
this.
true.
But
Sorry.
Nobody's watching.
Damn it! All right, so now I'm good to say anything. No, but seriously, artists show the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like if everyone's looking at this, especially like artists, right? And it's not to, I don't know. My personal thought is like, hey, everyone can be like, hey, grass is greener, or why don't we have this or that or whatever. Artists write fucking music that resonates with people. Be honest about what you're doing, and then be happy about what you reap, right?
Right.
Like there's this whole thing, I think, because we're in this instant world, right? That if you feel like you're working hard and you feel like you're posting and writing and doing all this stuff, that you should automatically reap something. And that's what I've meant to those like band leaders. Like, don't get in this for the wrong reasons, because you know what? You're not entitled to shit.
Right.
Like, write and the world decides. And
Right.
that's the cruel part about art. But you have to be in love with that too.
Yeah, 100%.
And so if you want to grow the scene, write, let it resonate, put it out there for the right reasons, And then don't be like catcalling, and thinking that you're entitled to something because you've done the right things.
Right.
Shit ain't about the right things you've done. There's a lot of great people who have not done bad things that get cancer and die.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't mean to equate being in a band with a terminal illness. All I'm saying is that the world doesn't necessarily consider that.
Anything.
Right, and it doesn't consider that. You
Yeah.
can do all the right things, right? And you could get hit by a bus or something. I'm not trying to take it to a dark place. I'm just saying, like, it comes back to, like, why are you doing this?
Right.
So, like, when we talk about growing the community, artists provide, man. Provide a place for people to come. Provide a sonic platform for people to gather around. Provide something. Like I said, like, you're here as a healer. You're here as a counselor. You're here as sometimes, like, just a break.
Yeah, to escape, man.
Think
like
like
all the people that go to festivals that work all year round to save that money to go to like 2 or 3 festivals a year. And so that's their social life. That's everything that they live for, and that you're the soundtrack to that experience.
sometimes I feel like when those questions come up, and not necessarily like that you're saying it that way, but I hear this all over the place, right? It's like sometimes people feel like what the community's offering is not enough.
Right.
And it's like not enough for you as the artist or something. And sure, like, we all want growth and we all want to connect with people and do this kind of thing, but I feel like it has to be done in a way that has got the right kind of intention behind it.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's always a hard question for me to think about because, like, sure, I want, saw at a show, and sure, I want to have, like, a sold-out tour, and sure, I want to be doing this, that, and the other. But also, like, there are people, like, living, breathing, dying, working their ass off to come to your show to support you. And if that's not enough, then
we're not forgetting about you.
Right. If that's not enough, nothing would be enough, right? If you come
Yeah.
about it that way, then what would be enough?
But do you think before all this coronavirus thing that you think that not that it was like falling off, but that it was like kind of quicksand a little bit, like
What?
it felt like it was kind of shrinking.
Like Jacksonville specifically?
Yes. I think so.
Yeah, I think that when I first moved here
For the local bands.
Yeah, like so when I first moved here, it was like there was like all this shit going on. Herta Watts, Lucky Costello, Parker Urban Band.
Yeah.
There was like all these bands.
Squeedlepuss, bro.
Squeedlepuss,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ritz too, right before that too.
Yeah,
I
right
miss
before that.
Squeedlepuss. Paul, just fucking start it again.
Come on,
What's
Mr.
the
Miller.
deal, dude?
Come on,
Just
Mr. Miller.
start it again. I'll go to every show. Jesus.
I think a lot of it is that
Seriously, though.
I
That shit
know.
was crazy. Daniel. Oh, my God.
there's
Stefan, most of these guys are still
Oh,
there.
my Stefan's
they're
a
all
fucking
here.
animal,
Just
man.
start the band. I don't know what happened.
Or at least intermittently here.
Yeah,
right.
right.
So there's a I think a little bit the part of the issue with that I think is that bands come up and then they go away very quickly here because there isn't like an industry to get to. Like if you're in LA or New York, there's like an industry to aspire to be a part of where that doesn't really exist here. So I think bands first off get very discouraged by that.
Sure.
And because it's also now so DIY that there's a lot of responsibilities that you have to take on as the band that 20 years ago you didn't have to do.
Yeah.
And so that's very discouraging. And then also this is not a diss towards Jacksonville. It's just the reality of what the city is.
Here we go. It's 2305 fucking shows.
No, it's
fucking colors right here.
No,
Go
no.
ahead.
It's
Talk
it's,
about Duval real quick.
No, I love Jacksonville, man. I love Jacksonville. It's been so.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
It's been so good to me, man. I love it here. But it's a very blue collar town. I think a lot of the musicians have a blue collar mindset where it's like I need to get paid to show up and play, and that's fine. But what that
The musicians.
I
see.
And what ends up happening is that nobody wants to be a part of a creative project because of what that entails. That means that you don't go and play 4 hours in a night and make $100, $200 or whatever.
Well, let's start one. I'm drunk enough to get it going.
So I think that's why you kind of see these like these.
I got Ben on it.
Yeah.
He's
It's going to be called Impulse Response. bro.
Wait, Impulse Response
Yeah.
is a great fucking band name. And then he just I've known him for so long. He's just over my shit. I'll say something like that. He just.
No, because I get on these trains of thoughts and you keep derailing me, and it's very difficult for me to keep my train of thought. So I have to just stay on it while you're doing it. I forgot the point I was trying to make.
That's kind of
but
my point.
It's something about like people trying to right. What a creative project entails is that you don't get paid all the time. It's a different industry. It's a different side of the business. So
Right, yeah.
that I think that is a big problem with why bands don't stick around here.
Yeah.
But I think that we're on another kind of like
we
uptake.
could do it,
There's
though.
bands coming out. There's bands that are starting to do stuff again. And I think part of the point that the bigger point that I want to kind of bring back around on this is that support for each other. Like musicians have to support each other in this endeavor. You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not a competition.
It's not a competition. There's so
I haven't
much-
felt that way really about any local bands and everything. Like when you were younger, you did. You know what I mean? Like in 2021, everything like that. And then you're just like, oh, we're all just trying to do the same thing. We're all brothers. Except
there's a
we're
friend. I think there's a bit of
brothers and
friendly
sisters.
competition where it's like you look at what other people are doing, and it's like, well, okay, we're not doing that, so we need to figure out how we can do that. So it's good. It's good to have that level of competition, but at the same time, like there's such a big market out there still, and we are kind of competing for people's attention on some
Yeah.
level, but at the same time, it's like there's no reason why we all can't do that at different times, and we should be able to support each other in those endeavors.
If we were all to come together and everything like that, and start Jacksonville's largest band you've ever seen with
So-
like 20 guitars
Nice.
and then like 5 keyboards because there's only 5 of us, and then
So we're doing like an open mic.
It would be the largest open mic you've ever seen.
Well,
Lot
I
of
mean,
mics.
hey, you got some good points. I think
I'm just teasing.
the system community.
Yeah.
You know, it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you start community? Yeah, that's really what it is.
I think you got to like roll through the fact that you're in an ebb or a flow.
Right.
Wherever,
it's
whenever
accepting
you're
the
at, where you're
plateau.
at.
Accepting
Yeah,
the
like
plateau.
hey,
you know?
it is what it is. I mean, you go through ebbs and flows. Communities, opinions change. Cultural environments change.
People get older.
Real estate gets bought and sold.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Big
those
time.
things have a big piece of the pie. But
Freebird. No, I just wanna
that's
say
kind of
that.
what you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't, real estate.
That's okay.
Real estate out on Third Street.
Surfer can at me. I fucking hate that bar like, so much, but whatever.
Agreed.
You know, but those kind of things are gonna occur, right? But you said like, hey, you know, if it's when you were saying, hey, maybe it's like, is it a blue collar town with blue collar musicians and that kind of thing? I would say that could be possible.
People are
but
trying to get paid.
but I would
because of it.
but
They
I
don't
would
look-
challenge.
They don't look to the future.
Yeah, but I would challenge that a little bit and say it goes back to that same thing we talked about earlier with like bands and shared vision and stuff. Is that mentality the symptom or is that the cause? You know what I'm saying? And maybe
Yeah.
that lack of shared vision and those kind of things are maybe the true root cause, and it manifests as that symptom.
Yeah.
And it's easier to see it in that lens because that's the thing. Like for example, like if I'm working with a group of people, right, and we've had the conversation, we have that shared vision. I feel like that buy-in sometimes can bleed over through some of those things. And if the situation's running into is always just about the money, I mean, one, it's important. So
Yeah.
as a group, why aren't you having that conversation?
Yeah.
But then two, like maybe those people aren't the right people for that project.
Yep.
And it's like people are like impatient to always assemble the variables,
Right.
right? And so you end up with these symptomatic things that feel like they're the cause, and maybe it's that like that group really didn't talk about like what they're trying to do or what the vision is or what, you know, like because I feel
for
like those
sure.
kind of creative buy-ins will pull through a lot of those things, and it
Yes.
doesn't make them irrelevant, but it does steer the ship a little bit differently.
Did you go to Tony Robbins' conference before this? Or
Me and Tony are good friends.
you know Tony?
I actually met Tony through Janice, believe it or not.
Good.
That's what it sounds
Yeah,
like.
I was at Janet's
Community.
Christmas party.
Community is important. Money means nothing. LCD sound system
Well,
forever. It's basically what you need to
well,
get out of this.
I-
and the children are the future.
Yeah, children are definitely
Children of
the
the future.
I think
Give
that-
them all your instruments.
I think that there's something
or
to
your extra guitars.
And
I
your
would say.
soundboards, and your
And
soundboards.
your soundboards.
I think there's something to also informing the musicians that are in those cities, which is why we kind of started doing this, was to help inform people, because I think a lot of people like have this assumption of like you just play bars around town and then you elevate to that next level, and that's not what you do. That's not how it works.
You gotta dig in, bud.
You have to go down a different path, because they're not like playing in bars is not the music industry. That's the bar industry, and then you have pursuing
That's a paycheck.
Right. So I think informing people of those differences is super important, and that's how you kind of enlighten the culture to get on board with this next thing.
Yeah.
And with that, you can start to develop a community around that. Jacksonville has a strong music community in the sense where people will show up to the show
That's
if
true.
they're really invested in what you're doing. Right.
Yeah.
And then the next thing to do is build a big scene on that. How do you build the scene? Well, you foster an environment of support for musicians to keep at the grind and keep doing it, and inform them on what that grind actually is, so they know what that road looks like, and they continue on it. And then you have and then around that, an industry will ultimately be built around that community. So it really starts with us learning about how this thing works.
We'll just get every single musician on this podcast, and they'll be like, okay, we're starting a union. But not a union like as like we're gonna be like we get more money and everything like that. No, I've got to figure it out.
Yeah,
I'll be the Jimmy Hoffa.
Sounds like you got it.
I'll be the.
You'll be the Jimmy Hoffa of musicians.
Yeah,
Don't go missing on me, bro.
If any
Or do, I don't know.
If anybody could be the face of a musicians union, it could be me. Just saying.
Yeah, you got a very blue collar look to you.
Nice.
It's that Kentucky swag, dude.
Woo! Want to fight about it?
People know you ain't missing Rand.
Surely not.
You standing for the people.
I do, and I will leave no man behind.
You guys want to do some unpopular opinions?
I was about to say, yeah, we got to wrap it up. It's been wonderful talking to you, Ben.
It's been wonderful.
Yeah,
dude.
man.
Thank you guys for having me.
This has been one of those
time
informative
flies and everything
episodes,
like
I
that.
think.
Think to yourself. Think of an unpopular opinion, and then whisper it to me, and then I'll let you know if it can fly.
Man, I tried to put some thought to this, but this is like the hardest thing to do.
I know.
But
Tell me about it's our hardest
I
thing.
envy you
No.
guys trying to come up
We
with
got to
this
do
every
it.
week.
We got to do it every
We
week.
do it every week now.
But we've got and we've gotten to the point now that we do it at 4:30 p.m. on Sunday before it starts.
It's so brutal, man. I was like I'm racking my brain to think of, and I'm sure I've got many unpopular opinions.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
we'll listen to ours and we'll
yeah,
give
maybe
you the
that'll
last
inspire
one.
me.
Yeah. So my first one is bullying isn't a bad thing.
Ooh.
It's an unpopular
Juicy
opinion.
unpopular opinion.
It's a good one, I think.
Uh-huh.
Builds character, builds coping mechanisms. If you can get through it, anyways. Some people don't get through it. That's all.
Yeah, some people
That
don't,
sucks.
and they don't get through
Survival
it.
of the
Like, they
fittest.
commit suicide because it's so bad.
Right.
Great opinion.
Well,
Great,
you know.
thanks a lot.
Just saying.
In these times, dude.
It's easier it's easier, it sounds like, to teach better coping mechanisms than it is to dismantle existence as a whole, because bullying is something that's I'm saying it's
Isn't life hard
it's an intrinsic
enough?
part. It's an intrinsic part of life, and I'm saying that it's easier to teach better coping mechanisms than it is
He's never
to.
been picked last before. It's the worst. I was bullied.
So was I. I was bullied when I was in elementary school. I got bullied, and
For
middle
what?
school,
That tattoo?
because I was a fucking weird kid.
Hey.
That's a good one. Anyways, what do you guys think about bullying?
That's what I told you.
What do you think? Ben didn't really
I
say
think it's
anything yet.
awful. Michelle Obama. I'm sorry, not Michelle Obama. Who's a fearless leader's wife, trying really hard.
Ivanka, yeah.
Ivanka.
She should talk to her husband
First
about that,
lady.
maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're not doing that.
Ivanka Trump. That's her stance. Michelle Obama was against obesity.
Or Melania. I don't forget which one it is. Doesn't matter. What do you think about bullying,
no,
there,
Ivanka
Ben?
was, yes, Melania Trump. That's Melania Trump. That's
She's for bullying?
no. No. What's so funny is that she's against bullying, and then her husband bullies the whole time.
So there's a great ironic narrative that runs through.
I would call it hypocritical.
Yeah.
Ironic would be funny.
Well, I kind of think
It is kind of funny.
Is it though?
Yeah, a little bit.
No,
Depending
it's
on
not.
who's on
when
the
you
other
can
side
do
of
nothing
that.
but laugh.
Yeah, I suppose.
Look,
so.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I see where that comes from.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
don't-
saying?
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I was gonna ask you. Is where does it come from?
It's an intrinsic part of life.
But and we're not gonna probably get rid of it yet, but we may someday, right? I think it's something that we got to be able to discourage. Like when you're talking about like, hey, maybe it's more coping mechanisms and stuff. Like, I think bullying is probably always bad. I think what is worse is the fact that we do not see enough people responding to it. Like, I think the way we look at bullying, we look at like bullying as a lens, like it's this person to person thing. And I think we probably would do ourselves a great favor, looking at bullying as like a one to many, right? Because then I think people have skin in the game to like give a shit about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's probably that's probably where we need to go.
I think that kind of already
you
exists.
think that that's what you said? It builds character.
Well, it does in some
So does
respects.
reading a fucking book.
Yeah, that
Like,
does too.
Fuck off.
But
No, bullying is awful.
The world's going to throw shit at you anyways, regardless of how you feel about bullying. Number one.
Disagree.
Number two, I think to your point, Ben, that like having people kind of making it like a one versus many kind of situation. That kind of is already the situation when you talk about kids going to school and getting bullied and their family getting involved and trying to help them and starting initiatives for anti-bullying campaigns and all this stuff. All I'm saying, we should take every
but there's
measure.
fucking Derek campaigns. That doesn't stop you from doing. Like the campaign thing is like what I actually kind of detest. Like I don't mind like the awareness thing.
Yeah.
And like I guess campaigns are how you're doing that in today's world.
Right.
But like where are like I'm thinking like one to many like and there's some great stories of like other kids sticking up for people.
Right.
But like where is that as part of our like you talk about building character,
Yeah.
standing up for someone who has a problem that's not yours.
Right.
That's character.
Big time.
That's part of the bullying campaign is like stand up for somebody.
You
That's
should-
like in
you
like
should-
the top 5.
I'm saying you
narrative.
should. I say you should do all that. I'm not saying don't do those things.
I'm
saying do all that. So
There
I'm just
are
saying.
more negatives that come from bullying than positives. That you were trying to say that.
I don't know if that's
What
true.
was your original opinion?
That it's not a bad thing.
It is a bad thing.
It's an intrinsic part of life. I think every species has a version of it, and I think it's gonna be harder to erase that from humanity or from any life from any species than it is to just teach better coping mechanisms. Doesn't say I'm not saying to not do the anti-bullying stuff
So you're
or to not teach people
so
to
you're-
stand up for other people.
So you're
I'm just saying
you're
that it's
pro bullying.
I just don't think. I think that
Look, kids, if you're in school right now,
This show was for you. till
it
now.
was for you, and I apologize for Tony.
That's why it's
he
an
was
unpopular
bullied
opinion.
A lot in
Yours
Miami.
now.
Tony 305 didn't get along with kids. All right, which one's mine?
One to the right.
Oh, to the right.
Yeah.
This is very unpopular because I'm OCD and a germophobic. Can we shut Florida back down again now? Like, please? Please, can we shut it down? I want to play a show more than anything, but at the same time, they're cranking out the numbers on the COVID and everything like that. Shut it down. Unpopular opinion. Nobody wants to hear this. Nobody from Florida wants to hear this. But god damn, like we were so close to like beating it, and we're just like, all right, well, it's not that bad, right? And then we just opened it back up again, and then all this stuff happened. Lynch is closed.
Yeah.
You already know about it. I think
Mhm.
we can talk about it.
Yeah,
But
it's out there. I'm so conflicted on this one, man.
I
Yeah,
am
same
too. I'm
here.
Like,
conflicted.
I don't even know. Here's the jacked up part. I don't even know. Like I feel. I don't know like what's heads or tails of this anymore.
Exactly.
Me neither,
Nobody
but
does.
I do know
It's-
that you open the city back up, more cases. You close the city down, less cases.
I mean I think. Here's the thing though. This is why I'm so conflicted because you're absolutely right. But the other like side of that coin, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying like I've kind of lost my compass on this one. I hate
Yeah,
to
100%.
say that, but like
It's been
most of
3
the
months
cases are
it.
relatively benign.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
And I'm
kinda-
not saying the people that it's not benign for don't matter. They absolutely do.
everybody matters.
But
Every life matters.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm saying like, hey, do we shut it back down for people that are high risk? I mean, I don't know, man.
I know.
Yeah, I think anybody knows. It's a
What
hard
I'm trying
thing
to
with
say
this.
is like, can we just go back to the way that it was like a month ago, where they had everything like okay, sorry, everything that was essential was back open and everything like that. Just go back to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
It's an unpopular opinion. It just seems to me that we opened it back up like for some reason. I'm not really sure why.
People are going broke. No one's getting unemployment here.
I understand that, but also
No one's
people are
getting-
getting sick and dying, and then it's just gonna go back to getting. It's gonna get worse.
Well, if people can't financially support themselves, and they die too in some aspect, in some way. Some people are like people starve to death. Shit happens. You know what I mean? Economies don't run. Food doesn't get delivered.
No one's
people, like,
starving to that.
I'm just saying we don't know. We don't know what the long-term consequences look like. We just shut down indefinitely. Is all I'm saying. You know?
My thing is like it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know like who says.
Yeah.
That's like the.
Fearless leader.
That's
Oh boy.
so again. Who says?
Donnie gets it
I
done.
just
Donnie
yeah
gets
yeah.
it done. I lean towards opening
4
back
more
up.
years.
That's just me, but I don't know. Like, no one really knows what to do right now. That's what it is.
I know, but my unpopular opinion and
Right.
being a scared grandma, which is basically what I am, shut it down.
Well, maybe that's the thing. Maybe it comes back to like, shit. Maybe it comes back to like individual choice, right?
Yeah.
Like if that is the thing, do you? I mean, if you were gonna if it was shut down, you'd be quarantining anyway.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's one of those things where like, hey, you let all the silly folks, get themselves sick if they want to.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yes.
I don't know, man, because like the stuff with the nursing homes and all that stuff, those people aren't choosing that.
Right.
I know.
And so that's where I don't know.
Yeah. It's
It just the reason why I say that is I'm being like a precursor because it seems like it's gonna be like a month from now that it's all open back up again. It's gonna be twice as worse. Is
Yes.
what I think.
You might not
And
be
I
wrong.
don't know if that's true or not, and we will find out.
Data's
but
popping. I will say that, right? Data's popping.
yeah, data.
Data.
Data's popping, dude. So
It's the new hip thing.
I thought he was saying Dade because he's from Miami.
No.
But
All right.
I was gonna say, me and Fauci, we'd hang out all the time, and he'd be like, "Yeah, 100%."
Yeah.
Fauci for president.
Yeah, because he definitely quarantined himself. That's for sure. Anyways.
He's a Keebler elf. He looks good. He's not sick.
Next unpopular opinion is I'm a big fan of being lazy, guys.
You're a big fan of being lazy.
Yeah, and this is what I mean by that. Everyone likes to sometimes like just veg out and not have to worry about shit. I'm the kind of person that during quarantine, don't get me wrong, I practiced a lot and I wrote and I did my shit. But everyone, because they weren't working or like they found projects around the house, they found all kinds of shit like that to do. Like I am not that guy. I see
Yeah.
something broken in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a month before I get it done.
Yeah.
It's like if it doesn't have to do with like something with my relationship or with music, then I don't really have any interest in pursuing or family. You know what I mean?
Did you get lazy? I got really lazy.
I got hyperproductive, man.
Right.
I'm the
I
odd
really-
man
I
out
know,
here.
you're one of those
Yeah.
guys.
I'm the odd man out, man. Like
Well, no,
we got under
you're not
quarantine.
you're not the odd man out. This is the unpopular.
Yes.
opinion.
My
I'm the one that agrees with them. I haven't done shit. We did this podcast. That's about it.
Yes.
No, but that's pretty cool. That's
We bought
pretty
a camera.
cool. Nice.
That's about it.
Yeah, I went into hyper productive mode.
Yeah.
I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, I can't imagine you just sitting there watching TV all day. You're one of those guys that's got to be doing
I
something.
did like too many crazy things.
Yeah.
Like to even like admit.
Yeah.
I like did a bazillion house projects and took apart
I
my
learned how to
instrument, rewired it. I
Oh,
did all this
wow.
crazy stuff.
That's
I'm like,
fucking awesome.
nice. Hey, that's
That's good.
But also I didn't know how to cook at all. I was like a 3-year-old at cooking.
nice. Okay.
It's productive.
Ate at Whataburger for 2 years,
Hey, ain't nothing wrong.
and then Papa John's for 5 years before that.
Okay, so you got a good 3-year and 5. So what, 8-year stint?
I've got a 3-month stint of my heart feels better.
Yeah.
That's gotta be
Imagine
pretty
that.
bad. Then holy
No,
cow.
just-
Dude was eating
Jesus.
fucking Whataburger for 5 years before this every day.
More like 2, but anyways. But I can't cook. I can make a mean pina colada right now.
Ooh, all right, heck
if,
yeah.
If you want to hang out later,
You
I'll
know.
make a pina colada. Getting kind of sick of them though, because good lord, that's all I can make. All right, what do I got? Oh, this might be good because this is
Nice.
more music.
You're gonna hate this, Ben.
Uh-oh.
I have and will never be a fan of the sitar.
Ooh,
I
okay.
hate the sitar. Follow up. That's what broke up the Beatles.
Oh my god, dude. Oh,
Hands
where do we
down.
start with that?
Because
Where do we start with
I don't think anybody but George Harrison liked the sitar. And you saw George Harrison's career compared to Paul McCartney and John Lennon. We don't have to bring up Ringo. He did okay. He's still alive.
Didn't even
somehow.
play on half their records.
So we're
if you don't
discounting-
today.
Even wanted to kill him. That's how not famous he was.
We're like, we're gonna let him slide.
Well, yeah, we'll let him slide.
Like he didn't even really play.
Didn't even really play.
1,000% Ringo will be the last person of the
Aw.
Beatles to die. But coming back to it, the sitar is annoying and shrill, and I hate it.
Man, that is an unpopular opinion because I
Yeah.
freaking love it.
He
so
does
much.
too.
I love like all Eastern music.
Same here, man. I love that shit.
It's not that. It's just a sitar.
Billy hates culture, so
I do hate culture.
Is that thing with hating jazz? Is that real?
yeah, he hates
Is
it.
that like real?
No,
Because I hear
it's
this
a-
all the time,
He
and I'm
hates
like,
it.
I was like, tonight I'm gonna ask you, so I'm sorry to
It's a
interrupt.
long-running joke. I don't hate jazz, and in fact, like I'll listen to jazz, and I'm more of just like like an ugly girl that sees a hot girl and it's just like I hate you, but it's really just because I'm jealous.
I see. Okay.
That, more like that.
The thing,
But I do like jazz, and I listen to it. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing! Like this is incredible! Like I don't even understand what's going on, and then I hate that I can't play it.
anytime I ever put on jazz in the van on the road or something, he's like, "This is fucking stupid. Change this shit."
But I will say
Oh damn,
Yeah.
Chelsea.
Yeah, that's right. I thought I caught slack for that one, bro. That female singer comment you made. It was a very unpopular opinion, I will say.
I have a very
narrow view of what you like in music, and that's okay.
What's the word? Like when you have a good taste in your tongue, like I just
You have limited palate.
I have a.
Here you go. Here you go.
You're
Not
not limited,
It's limited.
but that same
Narrow
ballpark.
scope.
No, it's more of just like I'm picky, and so
Okay.
I definitely don't like the sitar though.
Yeah.
It's annoying,
Okay.
and that's the end of it.
Well,
But hands down, if you do you think like okay, like 1967, they all go to India, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, that's what they're like George, like okay, like we get it. Like can we go?
They're like,
can
you
we go
really
back
like
to-
this, huh?
We can go back to England, right? He's like, oh yeah, but give me one more minute.
Yeah.
And then he's like learns the sitar and he brings it back. Like, well, we're gonna do this in every album, and they're like.
So Yoko was a scapegoat.
yeah, Yoko's a scapegoat. Yeah.
No, George.
Like we're gonna bring her in.
George-
She's gonna sing great.
Yeah.
and then,
And then we'll tell them that we don't like it because of that. They're all sitting in the back like smoking.
Okay.
They're
so
like,
you don't like the sitar, but you listen to fucking Yoko Ono sing. Yes, that's basically
Yeah,
the situation.
they're like, how do we work this angle? They're like,
I do think that I don't like.
find me a female singer. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Shame on you,
Good
dude.
burn, Ben. That
I
was
just-
a good one.
And it's not that I don't. That was blown way out of proportion again with what that I hate jazz. It's not that I don't like female singers.
How about Aretha?
Yeah, amazing.
How about Susan?
Susan Sarandon.
All right, we're gonna move on. Then.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Very narrow
Alright.
scope, that
Alright.
guy. Anyways, Matchbox 20 is super underrated.
You know, I've not dug into that catalog enough to comment. To be honest,
Just listen to their first record.
I was
That's all
not
you gotta do.
impressed with
The-
some of what I heard passively.
Yeah.
Right? I was not really into that music at the time. I
Right.
guess you could say like I wasn't even listening to it.
Yeah, I feel you. I didn't
Which
like
maybe,
it either.
hey, I don't know. I can't comment on here. Maybe it's my shortcoming of not digging into it. But it just didn't resonate me at the time. Right?
Yeah, I feel you.
Underrated would mean that nobody knows who they are.
No, underrated would mean that nobody appreciates them for what they actually are.
They were appreciated in the 90s, and we let them go.
I'm just saying, if you listen to it, it's really good songwriting.
It's
The
not.
guitar player is actually really good. He doesn't do
They're
anything
not.
fancy. He just does. It's very tasty, and you're like, oh, that was.
You don't have to
pretty
be
cool,
fancy
actually.
to be good.
Yeah,
I'm-
it's just he's just
and
very
then you
like.
have the smooth vocals of Rob Thomas.
Yeah, that was a great song, by the way. Smooth. Rob Thomas is a great singer.
No.
It's the thing is, so what happened, so since I play some of these bar gigs around town, the acoustic shit. It's like I learned I grew up like my mom specifically always had Matchbox 20 playing in the house. So I
That
grew up
explains
listening.
a lot.
So I hated it when I was younger.
Really?
When I heard Smooth, I was like,
Did it get better with age?
well, when I heard
Is Matchbox 20 timeless?
Oops.
Ooh.
Oops. Because you're interrupting me, right?
Sorry.
So when I heard Smooth, I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool song, and Rob Thomas is a singer of Matchbox 20, and maybe I'll give Matchbox 20 another chance. I did, and I liked them or whatever, but then as I've gotten older and started like learning their songs for these gigs, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool actually. And then learning how to sing Rob Thomas's parts, I'm like, that's actually not very easy to do. Actually, it's actually like kind of like a hard thing. You just respect it more. I don't know, when you pick songs apart and you learn you learn like the ins and outs of them.
How am I in a
it's
band with
it's
you?
I don't know. I think you respect it more. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I can hear what you're saying. I mean, look,
Don't just cuz.
I haven't dug into that. I haven't dug into that to be able to intelligently comment on the Matchbox.
You don't need
Matchbox
to.
20.
I feel you.
I haven't.
Most people haven't. That's why it's an unpopular opinion.
That
because
is
it's
the
like,
most unpopular opinion.
yeah, I know.
Very passionate about this one. Very
I just-
passionate.
Are you kidding me?
they're so good. It's just
Underrated.
yes,
Is what you said.
in the sense that like people
It
probably
says
only
here-
heard
it
their
says
songs
here,
are on the radio.
Matchbox 20 is underrated. There's so many of them too, and I just didn't understand like
There's
how
not
did
so
they
m-
make any money as a band?
There's not so many of them.
There's 20 of them.
That's not. Anyways, what's your last
This is my
unpopular opinion?
last one. Did you think of one?
I got one now.
Okay, you got one. Okay, cool. All right, so this is my last one.
You're gonna love it. I think.
I'm not.
Oh, I'm into it.
I'm not a fan at all of the show Friends.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
we
I'm
know
with
that.
you.
Really?
There's nothing that I could.
I just don't like it.
I can't even say it on the internet.
Yeah.
I don't like.
I
I just
love
don't like
it.
it.
I did not. I
You don't
never
like it
understand.
either?
I think it's hilarious.
All right, then we're done.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't have to talk about
That was the
it.
last straw. No, yeah.
I just don't like Friends. All right, Ben, to close it out.
All right. Unpopular opinion.
You know what you got?
Nobody knows shit. That's my unpopular
Nobody
opinion.
knows
Nobody
shit
knows
about
shit.
Nobody
shit.
knows shit.
That's
And
right.
specifically about people and their musical preferences.
Yeah.
This is why I'm saying like you don't know shit. Like if you come with an opinion like whether it's a Matchbox 20 thing
Underrated
or
for sure.
or the female singer thing or any opinion that I could have
Or
had for that
jazz.
matter, especially when it comes to genre. Let me put
Yeah.
it that way. Let me qualify this.
Yeah.
You don't know shit about genres.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and because like I have robbed myself. No pun for the
For the Rob
Thomas.
Thomas fun. Yeah,
Right.
that was good.
I have robbed myself of several great like artists or even individual songs from things that I thought I wasn't into, like from genres or anything else.
Right.
I feel like every genre has probably something for everyone. People are just fucking lazy.
100%.
Like here's a good example. I am not the largest fan of electronic music.
right.
Okay. I tend to like more
Teach their
of
own.
the analog stuff, right?
Okay. Yeah, whatever.
Well, here's the thing. So and to be honest, I was really kind of a craphead about it. Like even we played some outstanding festivals, and I've been to tons of music festivals my whole life. A lot of times, I really wasn't even giving that stuff like its chance, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah,
once
I-
it came to some of the late night stuff, I'm going back to the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the way that I
I'm
was about it
done.
until about 2-3, almost 3 years ago now, I guess. Because I thought that I didn't like it, or I could hear it through the trees, and I was like, I just thought it wasn't for me or something.
That was my same opinion about jazz, and then Tony changed my mind.
Well, I just thought it just wasn't for me. I'm like, I know, and I totally respected it. I
It's
respect
not-
the artist.
I know that jazz isn't for me.
Yeah, and that may be fine too. But
Yeah.
there is some jazz artists
Yeah. I'm
who
teasing, by the
who
way.
would be but who's probably like the cat's meow for you, man.
Yeah.
Or like for me, there was an electronic artist, and
Yeah.
I don't know if people like him or hate him or whatever.
Who is
but
it?
Here,
I know it.
Here's the story. So I was taking lessons right with Tony, and those were usually like I can't remember. I think it was Wednesday nights or something. And so I would go there, and I would leave. He lived far from me, right? So I would go to his house, do the lesson, and I would drive home, and it was late. And on the way home, I got a call. I had to do something for work, like super late at night, and I was like, I got to go back to the office for like hours. And so I went to the store. I bought a bunch of stuff that I needed to do what I needed to do at work. I went back to the office, and I put on some like wireless headphones, and I was doing something that involved me like making like some big charts kind of things, and it was like gigantic size, like as big as the whole wall, right?
Wow.
So I like had these headphones on, and I'm doing this stuff, and I couldn't get into a vibe, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna pick something, and like on the Spotify thing or whatever, it's like listen to Emancipator. And I was like, I've
love
never listened to.
Emancipator.
I've never listened to the electronic music. I listened to this 7 C's, I think it's called. Like it's the album that's green with like all the fucking leaves or something on it.
I don't know.
Yeah, he doesn't know, but keep going.
Anyway, so I was like, I've never heard of it. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck it. It's super late.
Yeah.
I've got tons of work to do. If it's like electronic themed, then maybe it'll put me like in a trance or something.
Uh-huh.
So I went in and I turned this crap on, and I say crap because that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
I'm like, whatever.
That's okay. I took offense to
That
it. but then
thing
I'll
ran-
I'll let you have it. You're in my
That
house.
thing ran. That thing ran on repeat. I worked on this stuff for like 5 hours, and I was like, I can't believe that I didn't know that this flavor of it. Because for me, when I thought electronic music, I thought
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't
a
know
lot
that
of-
this was how soft and subtle, and the strings and the violins and the
Yeah.
motifing and the harmony.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my
So-
god, dude! I
so
didn't know it was
a
out
lot-
there.
So what I've noticed is that especially guitarists, I've noticed is that they listen to music as if like you're fucking like playing a video game, like going to battle or something like that. Like you have to like pay 100% of attention to it. But guess what? There's other music out there, and there's music made for specific things. And what cannot be compared to, in my opinion, which may be unpopular, but we're just finishing this up, is with electronic music. If you want to get something done, if you want to clean your house, if you want to go driving for a day or something like that, if you want to stop thinking about everything or just start meditating, you put electronic music on 100%. That's
Well, that
the
thing's
way to
Sean
go.
Hockney. I hadn't come across the gentle side except for a couple other times, and it just didn't stick.
That's my favorite is minimal house music, especially German minimal house music. I can show you like a million
It's
things.
the
that you-
worst
you have
thing
to,
ever.
You have to let me know. Oh, no.
but
that,
it's not something that you would be like, oh, well, now, and then Sean joins the parade. But you would listen to it and you'd be like, oh yeah, like I can calm down and listen to everything. Like you don't, it's not about breaking it down. You can if you want to, and you can still go that same route, the same way that anybody listens to jazz or blues or anything like that. It's an engaging experience, but it's not the same amount of like, oh, I don't know what to
Careful.
say. What do you mean?
Careful with the comparisons like that. Not the same amount of like something. You know what I mean?
The same. No. Comparing it, you don't put that amount of intense attention into it for that reason. Music has more than one
saying it has like a different
meaning.
mode of
It has
accessibility.
different motives.
Yeah.
Like I said, like there is like a praise to the human experience, which is like be the best at your at your instrument, and that's where the jazz
Or
and
just
that's where
convey
rock and everything-
something.
or
you know?
convey something, or even if it's just like a love song or something like that.
Right.
But a lot of people take away and they see electronic
So you're
music.
saying it goes back to like Townsend, and like embodies that. Maybe it's like the
Townsend? What'd you say?
Tao.
Tao.
And
The Taoism.
And that's what I'm saying. In Zen,
It's
kind of like the.
yeah. You can view it as that way, as like meditation and everything.
Very
like
hypnotic.
that. But
yeah.
it's and hypnotic and everything, and trance, and even it's called trance. But I would say with electronic music, it's you can if you really know about what it takes to create that sound, you can break it down the same way that you would guitar solo
Yeah,
and
for
jazz
sure.
and everything like that. If you want to go that route.
Why do you think it is that a lot of electronic music doesn't feel the need to do that?
I
Like,
would
do you
s-
think they're like just, and not that you can put everybody in a bucket, right? But do you feel like, or at least I don't,
Yeah.
I don't hear or feel the need from a lot of people that are into like electronic music feel the need to like justify it. I feel like it's very much, they're like,
you're in it or you're not. you know
yeah,
what I
like
mean?
if I tell you
I
I don't like
get it.
electronic music, you're
I'm just
probably
like,
gonna be like,
okay, yeah.
okay, whatever.
I get it. Yeah.
But if you say like a jazz musician, oh, jazz sucks, they're gonna flip out. Why do
Yeah.
you think the instability?
Well, I don't know. I can't talk to jazz.
I've just
fans
noticed
and
that as a
everything
trend. I
Like
feel like.
but for electronic music, it's like there's like two forms of it basically. It's like people that grew up listening to it their entire lives, and it hasn't been around for a long time, like since like maybe the 80s or whatever. But listening to it, and then right around like 2009 or so, it just became just like the most annoying thing in the entire world, and then that's what everybody knows, and then that's what they compare it to, and they're like, "This is awful." How
At least
could you
from our
listen to
generation,
that?
yeah.
And then it kind of just disappeared a little bit, and it's kind of gone, but it's made a huge impact in pop music. But for electronic music now, and there's so much that like didn't ever switch to that. Like, I hate saying dubstep, but like the dubstep and Skrillex side of things, like they never went to that. And like even when that came out, I love electronic music, and I was just like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
What about this? Let me ask you this. This is
Yeah.
another question I specifically wanted to ask you. So one was about the jazz thing.
Yeah.
Two is, so when I was in school, I had a friend of mine.
Yeah.
This really cool dude, and he had a very electronic taste in music, right?
Sure.
He had
This
this
school. What kind of school? High school, middle school?
college when I was in college.
Oh, you're in college.
And
okay.
he had this guy that he listened to that he turned me on to. This was the only other like electronic artist that I listened through enough to be like, whoa, this is pretty cool. But I liked it specifically because the different things that were sampled and the different styles of songs were so varied. That was the first time that I had heard that like cohesively on that I had heard. I'm not saying it's not out there,
Yeah.
but it's this guy that I can't find. I don't know if he goes by another name, if the guy died. Milo.
Oh yeah.
Destroy Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
All right, this thing, I remember hearing this record, and like the second track on there is like this guy talking about he gets on his bike and throws away materialism and he rides off into the sunset. It's this really cool, like pretty chillaxed.
But it's like a song
electronic
with
song.
like lyrics and everything like that. It's almost like
it's like a spoken sampling.
exactly.
And I always
Iggy
thought that was
Pop
cool.
talking over it because that's a big thing in electronic music. now.
I don't know, man.
It doesn't matter.
But I can't find this record. But I didn't know if you'd ever heard of this guy.
Yeah,
I thought this thing
no,
was so cool.
I know who you're talking about with Milo. But that was a long time ago.
Brian.
But
That is probably my least favorite genre. I don't know if that's an unpopular
Yo,
opinion.
no, well,
Dubstep, no, I think that's a pretty popular opinion by this point.
Dubstep was a giant fucking fad.
Yeah,
and
it
it
was.
was incredible how that no other fad got that famous and then fell off the earth that quickly. That was quicker and more popular than disco.
Is the bleep bloop stuff part of that, or is that a separate thing?
The bleep blue?
You know what I'm talking about? That it's just
the glitch hop, is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know, the stuff that to me again sounds like
Tipper?
I don't know, man. It sounds like you fucking
I
hit like
love this.
1,000 wrong buttons.
I just want
Like on your computer.
I want Max here just to be like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And then it just be just like two keyboards. This is for
But I just can't get it. Yeah.
Two different fans. That would be amazing.
And like I said, maybe I just don't understand it.
No, but like, okay, so already you said that, like, I love this. I'm not trying to say I'm like some sort of like a spiritual music guide or whatever, but if you say that you like this type of electronic music, I'm like, okay, well then you'll love this, and then you'll love this.
Oh yeah, man. Hey, that's what I loved last week about having you and Vlad talking so much, because
exactly.
it's been something that I haven't been in like the environment to understand it, but there have been certain records or artists that really stood out to me as like, God, you know, this, like I said, I that Emancipator thing.
If you like Emancipator,
I was
and
like,
you
holy
the
crap,
violin
that clicked
and
for me.
everything.
I just love the way that he built everything
He's a
so
composer,
softly,
yeah.
and the motifing that was
Well, if
going
you ever
on
see
there.
him live, it's two guys. But anyways,
Yeah,
I just couldn't believe it. I was like,
you have
this-
seen him. You
I've
do
never
know
seen
they're
live, but I know who they are.
Well, anyways, if you like that, you like I already know this already. So you like electronic music with a very organic feel to it, right?
I don't know what I like. Like I said, I think for me it
If
was
you
like
like
the long
Emancipator, that's what it
motifs.
is.
I like the long motifs and the thoughtfulness
and exactly.
that I felt was there. Maybe it
Okay.
is there in other stuff,
I
right?
could show you.
Like that's what Vlad was saying. Some of the stuff that's like, hey, the way they're thinking about the beats, they like put
Yeah.
it behind the beat and then they're doing this and this. It has
telling-
thoughtfulness. It just to me didn't resonate as quickly as something like
It's-
that did. I was like, oh my god, I get this
it's
right
the
away.
next
Right.
level of going through the studio and creating. It's like it's beyond that. And that's why I love it so much. It's experimental, you could say, but it's like just deeper than just experimental. It's like I don't know what to call it.
It's like
He doesn't know anything about it, but let's hear your
That's
opinion.
not true. So
Brutal.
I know.
Brutal.
It's true. though.
a couple like one of a group that I like is Air a lot, which is
From
like
the
very like
1970s.
it's very like ambient electronic, which I'm into, and then
Yeah.
also there's a group called Morchiba, which is really cool.
You probably like Aphex Twin's first album that they did. The ambient album works then.
Yeah,
He's
just-
the best.
the only thing that
He started everything back in the late 80s.
my biggest issue with a lot of the stuff that you listen to in particular,
Yeah.
because I don't discredit electronic music across the board,
Yeah.
because I'm also a big like hip hop fan.
Yeah.
But it's like just the it's just like, okay, the drums are an instrument too that should also have a voice in what's happening.
And that's the same argument that I make to you with jazz, which is just like it just sounds like they're just showing off and just play the right notes.
yeah, I know, but you have to just listen a little bit harder and
And then I also would say that to you.
There's definitely I mean, hey, right?
it's different.
There's
It's
definitely
not
showing out.
different at
There's
all.
definitely some over showing out
Oh yeah.
from some folks in probably that
Just like,
community
who's
too.
got the biggest?
What up,
dick? Let's
Baba?
go.
You the man, brother.
Oh sorry.
Like, how outside can we be? I mean, hey, that's probably in all music, right? There's ego in all music.
I no. There is. All I'm trying to say is, in jazz, you can just, I that's what I get out of it. I'm just like, oh my god, like it's what I've told him 100% of the times, and I won't say it on air, but you know exactly what I'm trying to call it,
Right.
with the guitar solos and all the solos,
Yeah.
and what it is really.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but it's just that's what I don't like about it, where it's just how awesome can my solo be?
Yeah.
And so that's what I don't like about it.
That's
It's
your understanding of it.
But
is
but
incorrect.
that's just a whole other side of music in general. Is that and don't say that's my understanding of it.
That's what it is.
Okay, but I view it as more of like there's just two sides of it, and just I'm a fan of the other side, which is the creating new things for the sake of creating things, and instead of getting to, which I think is what jazz is and what all that sort of organic music is finding the pinnacle of human aspiration. And you can quote me on that.
On that note,
All right.
Let's
really
call it a
close
night.
it out.
Sign it. Sign it.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Ben. Thanks for being on here. Cheers,
Yeah,
man.
thanks.
And make sure you guys
I've
support.
already drank all my stuff.
Well,
good for you. That's
I've,
it.
well, I've
Make
had
su-
3.
Make sure you guys support Ben Strok and the Full Electric at all the social media outlets like
Hey,
Facebook and Instagram
thank
and
you
all
guys,
that,
yeah.
right?
Facebook, Instagram, thefullelectric.com. We got the shop live up there now.
Hell
There you
yeah.
go.
So come on by.
Make sure you support us as well on all those social media outlets, and then please support Sidecar and Harleston Green for supplying with us.
Before we go,
the-
Chelsea just sent me a message telling me to check out the band Knower. That's one of
Knower's
my
awesome.
favorite bands.
Yeah.
And I don't hate female singers. I'm just very particular about which ones I love.
Yeah, I
I
know.
love
You
Knower.
said that on air. I didn't say that you said that. You said that. Anyways.
Details.
Yeah.
Knower's amazing, Chelsea. I know.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
You guys are awesome.
Real quick, we're taking.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. We're taking next week off.
Yeah, that's right. We're taking a weekend off.
Trying to find a new replacement for Cheryl.
Yeah.
Does she know?
Cheryl's
Or is this
got it.
on air?
I mean, she's finding out now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Well,
so-
Janice, news for you.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yeah, in 2 weeks.
Cheers.
Oh,
Cheers.
wait. What about our show? Tell me about our show.
Where are we playing?
We're playing at Brews.
Brews on the
but
27th.
the Hangout Express.
Hangout Express is playing at Brews as a acoustic
Great band
three-piece
name.
on
Thought it was called Impulse Response, bro.
Yes,
Impulse
that's a good
Response
one
is our
too.
new band.
Okay. Sorry, get it straight.
Yeah, check us out at
I thought we
Brews.
took the booking.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, check us out at Brews in Riverside.
Yeah.
On the 27th, I believe, of June.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
yeah, and we'll see you guys then.
Adios.
Thanks for
muchachos.
tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in.